Chapter 11:21. Although Han Dong's was strengthened by his pharaoh's identity, he was barely able to block the domain. But it was very difficult. This kind of cross-level confrontation caused Han Dong's energy to drain at an indescribable speed. Even with Meritus as a battery in his body, he would not be able to hold on for long. After all, in terms of level, Han Dong had jumped 2 whole levels to fight against the saint who had created a myth. It was already unprecedented to be able to fight against the domain. As the first prime substance, Grimm was also stunned by the virtual image formed by the confrontation between the domains. As a mantis demon, he could not enter the destiny realm for the time being. Naturally, he could not obtain the identity of a lord like Han Dong. However, the stronger Han Dong's hidden strength was, the more excited Grimm was. This kind of stimulation could even stimulate more than 100% of Grimm's physical potential. You're so strong? Looks like I have to show my true strength. Otherwise, I won't be able to hold on to my title of the first prime substance. Smack! Grimm's palm landed on Han Dong's shoulder again. The most primitive and crazy aura combined in Han Dong's domain to fight against the golden domain. Moreover, Grimm's domain was very targeted. With the cooperation between the domains, Han Dong seemed to be stabilizing the overall situation while Grimm acted as a hidden and sharp spear to break the balance. Han Dong, as a pharaoh, was fully controlling the Yellow Sand Army. Suddenly, a gigantic transport vehicle jumped out from the demonic worm. The demonic worm spat out a special army that was similar to the Void Mask in Dota. At the forefront of the battlefield, they gathered in an indestructible triangular formation. They replaced Han Dong's vanguard army and tore apart the Golden Army from the middle with absolute madness. The Golden Saint had never thought that the cooperation between the domains of the 2 juniors could compete with his fully activated Golden Domain. It even put him in an absolute disadvantage. The crazy domain was like a tentacle spear that hit the Golden Wall directly. It seemed like it was going to penetrate the wall. The Saint realized a problem and said in shock, "You were hiding your strength before." Grimm controlled the one-way territory with one hand, while his other hand gently rubbed his cheek. "That's right. How else would I have lured you here? You, an inferior creature that has yet to construct a mythical creature, can't possibly fight against me." His anger surged. The Saint compressed the remaining power of the domain with the help of the divinity. Before the city wall was pierced through, the Saint detonated it in the form of a compressed explosion. Boom! A surreal explosion in the realm of consciousness occurred in the stone chamber. Fortunately, Han Dong and Grimm had set this stone room as the final battlefield in advance. Grimm had carried out a special reinforcement process on the structure of this place. Otherwise, the explosion of this kind of consciousness on the plane of reality would have blown a few big holes in Grimm's body. It might even expose the trap in advance. The Golden Messenger, Fei, Grimm, and Han Dong were the main initiators of this explosion. All of them received 100% of the impact of the explosion and were blown away at the same time. Wow! Han Dong spat out body fluids mixed with sand. Many of his bones were broken and his organs were severely damaged. His intestines were all twisted into a mess. Similarly, Grimm spat out a meat-like substance from his mouth. It evaporated as soon as it landed on the ground. As the main initiator of the explosion, the Saint had a big hole in his chest. After he landed on the ground, he vomited crazily. A large amount of golden liquid poured out from his mouth. But, compared to the physical damage, this kind of consciousness explosion caused the most damage to the consciousness of the 3 of them. Even Grimm, who was the first prime substance and had many defensive measures in his body, could not stand up again after the explosion. He would fall down again if he tried to stand up. Even with the support of the tentacles growing from his calves, these tentacles were soft and weak. They could not be hardened at all. Buzz! A strong ringing in his ears and a feeling of the world spinning made Han Dong limp on the ground. The extremely important talent tree was violently impacted by the consciousness explosion. Even the main trunk was slightly lifted, revealing some of the twisted roots. It could be said that it was quite dangerous. The talent tree was like the danteon of some immortal cultivators in some novels. Once it was destroyed, the destiny route that Han Dong had developed could be said to be completely destroyed. Even if he could not stand up, and what he saw was a world spinning at high speed, Han Dong was still aware of the current crisis. If the saint used divinity to repair his consciousness and recover in advance, Han Dong's current state will be like a fish waiting to be slaughtered. "Count, take over my body." Han Dong's shout did not get any response. Count's consciousness and Han Dong's were companions. The consciousness explosion just now was shared by both of them. Without the support of the faceless skull, Count directly fell into a deep coma. It was impossible to wake up before the end of this battle, which meant that the related abilities of Bloodhound and Holy Sword could not be used. The will to survive supported Han Dong. His consciousness clone held onto the dark and damp wall and came to the prison area in his head. "Togo, just like before, continue to merge with me. And with you supporting the body, you must quickly recover your ability to move." Even if it was Han Dong's request as the master, Togo did not follow it. Togo stood in his cell in a dignified and calm manner. He was playing with a spherical metal toy in his hand. "Master, you can't carry out a deep imitation of me in this state. The pain and torture from my body will cause your consciousness to be injured again. If you're not careful, you will faint, and it will even affect your brain. Moreover, Master, with your consciousness state, you can't support me to go out and fight alone." Togo was right. Han Dong's consciousness was now in a wounded and weak state, unable to support a great demon like Togu. The pain would aggravate Han Dong's consciousness injury. At this time, a delicate voice came from the prison next door. I might be able to," just as Han Dong thought. The situation outside was quite dangerous. On Grimm's 37th attempt, he finally succeeded. His soft tongue hung from the side of his mouth, and his crazy smile was still there. One of his hands was dragging the black broadsword made of countless fingernails, barely maintaining a standing posture. Grimm wanted to take a step forward, but he almost fell. At the same time, the saint had just finished vomiting, and he stood up again in a very difficult posture. When he wanted to kill the target with his palm, he found that the divinity could not be condensed. At the same time, the golden wheel that needed to be driven by consciousness could not achieve self-defense, and it turned into a shield in the saint's hand. "You forced me to this point. If I had known, I would have brought the substitute in. I'll kill one of you first." He stared at Han Dong, who was lying on the ground. The saint used the golden forging technique to create a golden spear. He held a shield in one hand and a spear in the other. He slowly approached Han Dong, whose consciousness had already dissipated. Grimm wanted to stop him, but he could not do so for the time being. Just as the saint spent a full 5 minutes to get close to Han Dong, the spear was about to land. A stream of clear seawater overflowed from under Han Dong's body, and at the same time, pink octopus tentacles grew from his back. Chapter 1122. Under the state of extremely fragmented consciousness, Han Dong was unable to support the great demon Togu, even if it was just to release him. Master-servant relationship was built on the level of consciousness. Releasing Togu required Han Dong to split a part of his consciousness. Once released, the enslavement pressure brought by the great demon would completely crush Han Dong's consciousness. At the crucial moment, the best option appeared, Nicole Littleclaw. In terms of level, Nicole belonged to the mature hybrid demon family, the same level as Han Dong. Whether it was summoning or imitating, the burden was not too great. In terms of type, Nicole belonged to the hybrid demon family, half human and half hybrid demon. This characteristic was very compatible with Han Dong's hybrid. In terms of characteristics, Nicole's attribute was not suffering like Togu's, but the gentle deep sea. If Han Dong imitated Nicole, not only would he not be hurt again, but he could also use the seawater to nourish his fragmented consciousness. As for the option of directly sending Nicole out to fight, it was definitely not possible. There was a huge gap between her and the Gold Saint. If she did not know the status of the saint, she might be killed instantly. Deep imitation, Nicole, in an instant. There was a feeling of the sea submerging the brain. The gentle and warm seawater wrapped around the entire talent tree. The cracked roots were slowly healing under the nourishment of the seawater. Guru Guru. Bubbles floated up. In the blink of an eye, Handong's consciousness was in a state of sinking in the deep sea. In the process of sinking into the deep sea, the shaking of the consciousness gradually stopped. Handong was also freed from the feeling of the sky and earth shaking. Slowly, Handong's consciousness adapted to the deep sea environment and grew corresponding characteristics. In particular, his eyeballs grew a layer of inner membrane structure, allowing him to see everything clearly in the deep sea where sunlight could not reach. A magnificent palace gradually appeared in front of Handong's eyes. The size of this palace should be designed according to some kind of deep-sea giant. Handong's human body could not even compare to the smallest stone that formed the palace. In the deepest part of the palace lived a sleeper, the ruler of the deep sea and one of the main creators of dreamlands. The sober Handong immediately realized the problem. Is it because I imitated Nicole? Is it because of the royal blood flowing in Nicole's body that I am here? Suddenly, a giant eye opened in the palace. Leaning against the door of the palace, he stared at Handong, who had unexpectedly arrived here. Handong didn't feel any discomfort when he looked into those eyes. Instead, he felt that his consciousness had been completely stabilized. At the same time, an indescribable force carried Handong's body upwards at a high speed. This kind of floating process also symbolized the process of leaving the deep sea and returning to the main body, completing the deep imitation of Nicole. Reality, the grotto inside Grimm's body. The saint used the advantage of divinity and level to recover from the explosion of consciousness. Carrying the golden spear, he arrived in front of Handong. This spear was made of the original gold and carried the complete divinity of the saint. Once it pierced through Handong's head, he would die without a doubt. Kill one first, then I will deal with you. In such a situation, even Grimm showed an extremely reluctant expression. As a mad demon, Grimm had never shown such an expression, let alone the emotion of not wanting others to die. Perhaps he had not been in contact with Handong for more than a day, but he had found something that he had always wanted in Handong. However, even if Grimm wanted to help, the tentacles that extended from his palm at most stretched forward a meter before softening. In the nick of time, buzz, 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 the sound of a conch from the deep sea came from Handong's body. When Grimm heard the sound of the conch, his consciousness seemed to be wrapped in the deep sea. His consciousness was nourished and his mental state was accelerated. On the back of Handong's right hand, a light blue mark that symbolized the deep sea lit up slightly. Following that, clear seawater carried a series of filthy substances overflowed from under Handong's body, as if helping Handong to repair his body and remove the useless waste. You are related to the deep sea. When Grimm saw this scene, he showed a surprised expression. As the opponent, the Golden Saint felt extra uncomfortable. The sound of the conch coming from Handong's body made his head buzz. Even his vision was blurred by a layer of seawater. He forcefully used his consciousness to offset the effect of the seawater and launched a fatal piercing attack on Handong, who was lying on the ground. At the same time, it was more like a stress reaction in the face of danger. Squeak, 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 for dark blue octopus tentacles grew out from his spine. The tentacles carried Handong's body, moved quickly, and dodged the attack of the golden spear. At the same time, they supported Handong's body to stand up and stick to the wall. How is this possible? He didn't even touch the gate of truth. How could he wake up from the consciousness explosion just now? When the Golden Saint Fei raised his head again, Handong's posture had changed. Drip, 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 clear seawater kept dripping from Handong's body. The four dark blue octopus tentacles that grew from his spine were sliding back and forth on the surface of the stone wall behind him. His hairstyle changed from short hair to long, wet black hair. And seawater kept flowing out from the roots of his hair, along his hair or along his deep cheeks, constantly dripping down. In a short period of time, a large puddle of water had appeared under Han Dong's body. When his eyes opened, there was still a kind of membrane structure that was adapted to the deep sea. His pupils had also turned into vertical prisms. It gave the impression that he was a drowned corpse that was taken over by the deep sea creatures. The rapid blinking of his eyes replaced the function of his eyelids. The vertical prismatic eyes stared at his hands. This is the power of the Deep One. Deep imitation can actually reach this level. This has already surpassed the 100% synchronization rate that I achieved when I imitated Togu. There is also another power contained within, is the identity of the deep-sea messenger of privilege that gives me. He had almost recovered to 80% of his condition, and the Golden Saint was still in a state where he could barely move. It was such a great opportunity. Han Dong waved the crow scepter in his hand and used a certain offensive, mutated demon secret technique, tentacle strengthening. For a moment, the octopus tentacles that grew from Han Dong's back emitted a feeling of drowning and quickly whipped toward the Golden Saint's body. The Golden Saint, whose consciousness had not yet stabilized and whose body was extremely weak, had no time to react. Smack! Due to the attack from the deep-sea monster, the seawater splashed. The Golden Saint's body was whipped into two and heavily hit a wall in the middle of the stone house. However, the broken body immediately grew golden threads and quickly healed. Ha ha ha! Although your form has changed, it doesn't seem to be threatening enough. If you don't use the sword that cut off my right arm, you won't be able to kill me. It seems that you can't use it now, haha. Among all of Han Dong's attacks, only the highly integrated Holy Sword could reach the divine realm. Just as Grimm said, a mythical body existed by relying on the mythical body structure. Normal means could not kill it. Now, Count was in a deep coma. The Holy Sword form could not be formed. However, Han Dong was naturally aware of this. The purpose of the tentacle whipping just now was not to kill the Golden Saint, but to whip him to a certain position in the stone house. I never thought that I could kill you so easily. I'm just sending you on your way. What? When the Golden Saint realized the problem, waves of strange and distorted melodies ignored the barrier he had set up in his brain and quickly invaded his brain. This was a strange melody that was beyond the realm of music. Even the top musicians in the saint-level world could not play such a strange melody. And this melody was coming from the stone wall behind him. Unknowingly, the stone wall had turned into a murky stone door. After being nourished by the sound of the conch, Mad Devil Grimm had already taken action and secretly removed the restrictions on the stone door. Chapter 11:23. After learning from Grimm about the nature of the mythical level, Han Dong could only come up with this idea. There might be a 0.1% chance of killing the saint from the front, but Han Dong would never take such a big risk for such a small chance. Even if he wanted to maximize the victory, it must be built on sufficient confidence. When Han Dong fell into the central cavern in Grimm's body and found this unique chaos stone door, the plan was formed in his mind. The musical notes were like ticks, drilling in and out of the saint's brain, piercing and gnawing on the brain tissue with their sharp mouths. Even the divinity could be eaten by the ticks. This is obviously your body. Why is there a passage to the actual area? The saint had already noticed the problem, and he knew what kind of terrifying area that this door led to. Just the rhythm from the distant space made him fall into chaos, unable to extricate himself. At this time, Grimm's voice was heard. Nicholas, keep the land deed. In the blink of an eye, the structure of the ancient castle was like a piece of skin, quickly retracting and returning to Han Dong's palm, turning into a simple land deed. At the same time, Grimm, who was hiding in the dark, flew up and kicked Grimm heavily. The stone door was kicked open. A passage to the real madness was revealed. As the rhythm increased, there were distorted and swollen arms that looked like disordered organs pieced together, slowly stretching out from the passage. These chaotic arms grabbed the body of the Golden Saint and immediately dragged him into the passage. Just when he thought it was over, a golden light overflowed from the passage. The saint who was dragged into the passage was about 10 meters deep, completely stuck. I admit that I was careless. If I had brought a substitute with me, I wouldn't have fallen into this situation. But do you think you can kill me with just the two of you? After this battle, I may fall into a state of hibernation for a long time, or even lose my divinity, but I will not die here. The golden saint might be equivalent to a mythical body of the hybrid demons, relying on the pre-built saint step by step. However, the process of ascending the stairs was equally difficult. Perhaps only 1 in 1,000, or even 1 in 10,000 craftsmen would be able to do it. The reason he was able to reach this point was not only because of his talent, but also because of his strong willpower. At this moment of life and death, he had erupted with an extremely strong desire to live and made an important choice. By permanently consuming one's own divinity to obtain an explosive increase in power. In an instant, dazzling golden light overflowed from the saint's body. Whether it was the damage caused by the self-detonation of the domain consciousness just now, or his right arm that was completely cut off by Handong's holy sword, they were all repaired at this moment. At the same time, the saint turned into a semi-liquid state. His handsome face and hair no longer existed, and his body looked like it was made of golden liquid. Meanwhile, the golden, while hanging on the back of the saint, changed under the control of his consciousness. It turned into a golden door with a floating wheel, blocking the passage behind him and suppressing the strange rhythm. He used his great strength to break free from the arms that were grabbing onto his body and try to crawl out from the inside. Once the divine envoy successfully broke free from the restriction, under the state of burning divinity, Handong and Grimm had a high probability of being killed. Needless to say, Grimm knew what to do. Ha ha! Looks like you bunch of pretentious craftsmen can also do crazy things. Interesting, my desire to kill you has become stronger. Fortunately, I asked Eugenus for the eye in advance, or else it would have been difficult. Grimm's mouth emitted a strange green light, and a plague smell that Handong was very familiar with. An eyeball covered with regular green silk threads was spat out from his mouth. Grimm then dug out his own eyeball and replaced it. In an instant, Grimm's consciousness felt like it was being led into an ancient world. He witnessed how this eyeball was born from the top of hybrid demon technology at that time, and also saw how many ancient hybrid demons died in order to obtain this eyeball. Eugenus, this eye of yours is really a treasure? I don't want to return it to you. In the blink of an eye, the place where Grimm embedded the eye, including the entire right side of his face, grew dark green eyeball tentacles. His skin also evolved into a mossy structure, and each strand of moss was twisting. In exchange, he had a brand new ecological vision and a complete restoration of his consciousness. Grimm could clearly see that the divine substance in the saint's body was being consumed rapidly. What a low-grade divine substance. It can only last for 10 minutes at most. Grimm held this strange weapon, Mislile, with both hands. Under the control of his consciousness, the originally scattered weapons, arms, fingers, and all the black fingernails were arranged in the most optimal form, turning into an unusually sharp black sword. When the saint was targeted as an enemy, the ancient eye from Eugenus immediately carried out a comprehensive analysis. It analyzed the energy flow and key nodes in the saint's body, and even estimated the defensive measures that the saint might use, and transmitted the probability to Grimm's brain. This eye is so powerful. Grimm showed a greedy expression while following the estimated information given by the eye, and made the most optimal attack move. Foresight successful. After successfully dodging the attack, the sword landed on the saint's waist. However, the saint's body under the divine flame was as strong as or even stronger than the Golden City wall, indestructible. Sizzle. The blade could only cut a depth of 5 centimeters. However, as long as the cut was successful, there would be a centipede-shaped breath that symbolized the characteristics of madness, drilling into the saint's body. Boom! The divine substance filled the entire field of vision. Eugenus' eyes could not predict the best way to dodge. The punch hit Grimm's body directly and sent him flying and embedded into the opposite wall. However, this kind of large-scale bombardment was not bad. Grimm could still withstand it. Chaos tentacles were vomiting out from his body. However, Grimm was still in a state of excitement, and while vomiting, he dragged the black sword and continued to rush toward the target. Although Grimm's performance was crazy, his goal was very clear, and he must not let the saint break free from the passage. Crack! Another sword landed on the saint's neck, and a strand of divine substance quickly rushed into it. Again, Grimm was hit by the divine substance again and was sent flying. This time, it hit his lower body, causing both of his legs to be broken. The golden divine substance prevented Grimm's body from regenerating. Now, there was no time to go to the incubation room to change his body. Moreover, the body that Grimm was using now was the best one. If it were a body of inferior quality, he would be hit before he could even touch the saint, and he would not be able to unleash the full potential of Eugenis' eyes. Since his legs were gone, Grimm changed to a handstand and moved with his hands. He changed to using his tongue and teeth to control the black sword, and continued to rush toward the saint. He rushed forward again and again, without any hesitation. This kind of reckless attack was to trap the saint in the passage, and wait until the divine substance in his body was exhausted. Boom! When he was sent flying for the 6th time, Grimm's hands and feet were no longer there. His head was also in a torn state, and there was only a piece of skin on his neck that dragged his skull. However, Grimm's mouth was still holding the sword, and he was trying to grow tentacles from his head to continue moving and attacking. Grimm could not connect in time. The saint's 2 arms were already outside the door frame, and his body was about to escape from the passage. At this moment, ha! A burst of laughter that had been brewing for a long time rang in the cave. Chapter 11:24. Ever since Han Dong met Grimm, he had confirmed one thing. Grimm's madness attribute was definitely one of the rarest and most advanced abilities among the hybrid demons. Not only was it an invisible spreading of the domain, but it was also a causal influence. Contact with Grimm, either directly or indirectly. Whether it was a conversation, a battle, or even a glimpse of Grimm, the madness attribute would invade one's body. Through various emotional changes, it would induce the individual to go crazy. Han Dong also observed carefully with the help of the demonic eye. During the Versus tournament, all the participants in the tournament were tainted with Grimm's madness aura. Some of them even had turbid spots in their bodies. The saint might be able to resist this invisible madness with the help of the golden domain. Once there was a gap, especially when Grimm attacked at close range, the madness attribute would be successfully transmitted into the saint's body. It even affected the saint's emotions to a certain extent. The manifestation of anger was also a side effect of the madness attribute. After confirming this, Han Dong's plan was quietly carried out in the core grotto in Grimm's body. In order to prevent the saint from leaving the passage, Grimm tried his best to stop it. Han Dong, as a spectator, did not move at all. In fact, Han Dong was just waiting for the right time. He was waiting for a certain value to reach a certain standard, waiting for the madness attribute accumulated in the saint's body to reach a lethal concentration. As Grimm slashed the black blade into the saint's body again and again, a large amount of madness attribute was injected. The value had all reached the standard, even exceeding Han Dong's expectations. Now, Han Dong only needed to do one thing. He needed to mobilize all the madness attribute that was scattered in the saint's body. Mad laughter, it was Han Dong's last trump card. The reason why Grimm felt a sense of intimacy with Han Dong was because of the mad laughter attribute. In a sense, the madness attribute between the two was interconnected, but also different. Han Dong also experimented on himself. He found that he could influence the madness attribute released by Grimm through the mad laughter attribute. He could even combine these attributes and activate them together. An invisible cooperation was achieved between the two who had just met. Ha ha ha, ha ha ha. He had been holding in for too long. Han Dong completely let go of the restraints on the maniac's emotions. He used his left and right index and middle fingers to smear the black liquid on his lips. The octopus tentacles that grew out of Han Dong's back were spread out on the ground in the form of the Deep One. Kneeling on the ground, he held his belly and laughed. It was like an uncontrollable laughter that came from the bottom of his heart, and also like a special ritual. Mad laughter. This ability came from the fusion of Count and the Clown. It was a mental effect with a large area of effect. In the past, when Han Dong's team encountered a mental enemy, they would use crazy laughter to maintain the consciousness of the entire team. Currently, Grim was Han Dong's teammate. In addition to the increase in his thoughts, the crazy matter flowing in his body had also obtained a kind of potential activation. Grim, who was left with only his torso and head, showed a strong tendency to regenerate, slowly offsetting the golden substance that covered the surface of his wounds. Brand new limbs were slowly being formed. At the same time, to Grim, this kind of laughter was like the sound of nature. He had never heard such a fascinating laughter before. Dense tentacles even grew on the surface of Grim's brain, swaying along with the frequency of the maniac's laughter. This laughter is a mental ability of the mad attribute, but it doesn't originate from Father. It's a different system. Nicholas, you're really interesting. However, the main individual that was affected by the maniac's laughter was the saint, compared to Grim, who had his mind enhanced and body regenerated. The Golden Saint was in a state of near collapse. It was like an activating injection that pierced into his body, activating all the crazy matter that had accumulated in his body all this time. Crack. The Saint's skull was the first to break open. Below the broken golden skull, a thick and crazy tentacle actually drilled out. Then cracks appeared on his elbows, abdomen, and thighs, and tentacles drilled out from the inside. It was the corruption of the body caused by the crazy invasion. The maniac's interest was greatly stimulated, occupying the saint's brain, and his anger was also multiplied. He wanted to escape from the passage at all costs, and he even managed to take a step out. "I'm going to kill you." At this moment, something unexpected happened, something that even Han Dong himself did not expect. Han Dong's maniacal laughter intertwined with a strange melody coming from the depths of the passage, forming an indescribable symphony. Suddenly, the temporary seal formed by the golden wheel was forcefully torn apart. The chaotic matter in the depths of the passage seemed to be affected by the symphony, and it gushed out twice as much as before, dragging the saint's body. Just as he was about to climb out of the abyss passage, he was pulled back at the last moment. At this moment, there was not much divinity left in the saint's body. He could barely support himself by holding onto the edge of the passage with both hands. At this moment, the saint finally realized his true situation and realized that his journey of seeking the path would come to an end here. The madness that was growing in his body changed his emotions from anger to relief before death. His arms held onto the wall with the last of his strength. With an extremely twisted expression, he spoke his last words. "I didn't think I would die here. Because of my carelessness, I will die in the hands of you two little things. However, the news of my death will be turned into a dangerous signal that will be transmitted to the world I am in, and all the divine smiths will receive such a signal. Overall, this probing invasion was a success, and I've already sent back the relevant information. Soon, an unimaginable catastrophe will descend upon your world." As for the saint's last words, Grim, whose body had regenerated, was already standing at the entrance of the passage, replying to the saint with an extremely excited expression. "Is what you said true? There will be more trash like you coming to die. This is great. Come quickly. Let them come quickly. I can't wait to kill them. I really want to see what kind of trash can be produced in a mass-produced world like yours. As for you, go to hell. I'm tired of playing with you." Grim accumulated a mouthful of saliva and spat it out with all his might. Smack! The smelly saliva exploded on the saint's face, and the impact of the saliva was beyond the saint's endurance. His hands were loosened, and his body was madly dragged into the depths of the passage. In the process of falling into another world, His divinity was crazily disassembled into the most primitive substances, and his consciousness was completely digested. The myth collapsed, and he died completely. Chapter 1125. At the Corner of the Universe. Inside a bar observed from a human perspective. The London gamble that took place here came to an end with the death of the Golden Saint. The model representing Grimm and the normal model representing Han Dong were placed at the end of the chessboard, and because the two of them had achieved a special condition, which was to kill the Golden Saint, the odds had increased. The biggest winner of this game was the gray man in a small vest who placed all his chips on Han Dong. He opened his arms and took more than half of the chips into his arms. These chips also symbolized a title deed that corresponded to real power. This gray man's status would also be improved to a certain extent. Even among the kings, there was a difference in ranking. This gray man had a special title among the same level existences, the Great Deceiver. Since he was the last to place his bet, although most of the guests present realized that something was wrong, they could not change it. However, the banker of this bet was the absolutely neutral bartender, so there was no doubt about the fairness. The only factor that affected this bet was the player's information collected in advance. Most of the guests' attention was focused on the Golden Saint, but they had neglected another factor. The man, who was shrouded in a nameless fog, asked a few questions about Han Dong in an interrogative tone. Hey, where did this little guy come from? In this game, he displayed the ability related to the void, the deep sea, and most importantly, the ability of your gray matter. His imitation is even better than your direct believers. Naya, what secret project are you working on? And you're using it in this game without us knowing. The gray man shook his finger gently and said in a calm tone, This is not a secret project, it's just a restart of an earlier project. The prison project that used a lot of resources to research can't be abandoned, just like that with the construction of the Dreamlands. I've received the boss approval and have been secretly conducting research related to the subspace prison. However, the basic concept of the prison has changed from the Dreamlands concept of defense to another concept that is more inclined to attack. However, it's too passive to defend the sovereignty unilaterally. We need some advanced space technology to achieve a reverse invasion. Humans, who are not bound by fate, were a perfect match for this project. Thus, after spending a lot of effort, I condensed the subspace prison into one of my heads and gave it to an absolutely compatible human. Fogman, you're right. Nicholas's appearance in the London game was an experimental use of this project, and you have already seen the result. It can be said to be perfect. 1. As a human, they're deeply in contact with the Destiny realm. Their subjective standpoint is definitely inclined towards our world. 2. Being able to get along well with the hybrid demons or humans, and even being able to establish a good relationship with Grimm. 3. Being able to freely enter and exit the Destiny space by borrowing the essence of a human. And even the black vortex mark has appeared. For the subspace prison was put to good use on him. However, it would still take some time before he fully matured. Everyone could see that Nicholas's level could only be considered as a mid-matured hybrid demon. When he truly crosses the gate of truth, he will become our biggest bargaining chip in the negotiation with fate. I'm here to publicly announce this matter in advance. I hope that everyone will not actively interfere with the development of this little guy and let him grow according to his own ideas. While explaining simply, the gray man took out an ancient scroll that emitted a crazy aura. It recorded the original plan of the prison project in detail and was branded with the unique crazy royal seal. The man who symbolized the nameless fog carefully reviewed the scroll and could only nod and admit, since it has received the approval of the boss, this matter is in accordance with the universe's rules. I personally acknowledge the existence of this little guy, but it's only limited to this little guy. As for the corresponding human race of this little guy, I can't admit it. I think everyone sitting here has the same idea as me. Now, relying on our hybrid demon technology, we can already interfere with the gate of fate. According to the research progress of the ancients and the Yith race, We can enter the destiny space as a hybrid demon in at most 100 years. I don't want to repeat the same mistake because of the interference of humans. Fogman Hondong's personal problem suddenly rose to the level of humans. In fact, this was just in line with the progress of this gathering. The bartender gathered everyone, not only for the entertainment of a London gambling game, but also for the subsequent development and handling of a London incident. Conference, second item, the gray man shrugged. About the situation of humans, let Teacher Yoakum explain. The so-called Teacher Yoakum. It was the bartender with a strange, square face and eyes that were like clusters of galaxies. The London game has been extended due to the outstanding performance of Grimm and Nicholas. The death of the Golden Angel will be the fuse that will speed up the invasion of this group of craftsmen. According to my calculations, there will be a large-scale invasion of London in about a year and a half. The human knights from Rome will also arrive in London at the same time. When the time comes, I will invite even more guests to come here for an even bigger gamble. I hope that everyone can enjoy themselves to the fullest. At that time, we will reevaluate the value of humans. Just a verbal explanation is useless. Everything depends on the actual performance of this group of humans. There's one more thing. I just received news from the Madness Center due to Grimm's outstanding performance and the successful test of the prison project. The boss will take time to participate in the next London gambling game. Hearing this news, many of the guests were shocked. Fogman was both surprised and worried. The boss is coming. How is the boss's mood recently? Don't worry, I have built an exclusive passage. If the boss's mood fluctuates more, he will be sent back to the palace immediately. Also, the musician will be with him the whole time, so it won't be a big problem. Since the boss is coming, let's listen to his opinion. Things are getting more interesting. The conversation in the bar was very relaxed. This group of superior beings had a completely entertaining attitude towards the London incident. Even if a war would break out, they did not take it seriously. At this time, the bartender turned his face to the gray man. Naya, according to the rules, as the biggest winner of this game, you will be responsible for the player's rewards. Nicholas and Grimm killed the Golden Angel in a way that exceeded expectations. They should be rewarded enough. Don't worry, I've already arranged for the Evernight girls to do it. They'll get the rewards they deserve. Chapter 1126. Inside Grimm's body, Central Cave feeling the last strand of divinity being completely wiped out, Han Dong stopped laughing madly. Cough, 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 cough. He coughed violently, and even a large amount of cartilage and flesh from his neck were coughed out, showing a kind of minced meat, due to the interaction with the strange melody during the period of laughter. The laughter was led by the chief musician in the Mad Palace, and the tone and range were forcibly broadened. The laughter changed along with this abnormal rhythm. This kind of lead made the laughter rise to a level that Han Dong could not control. Han Dong also braced himself and insisted he had to ensure that the saint was completely dead before it would end. In the end, it caused the vocal cords to be completely torn, and even many cracks on the surface of the throat could be seen from the outside, and the internal trachea was full of small holes as thick as toothpicks. As if to cater to the melody, the laughter also used the small holes in the throat to be released together. Corresponding, Han Dong's crazy laughter received a kind of experience upgrade. Once this foreign melody was fused into it, the effects of mad laughter would also be strengthened. In the Deep One mode, the Deep Sea immediately healed the throat injury. Cough, cough, cough. Because of the severe injury, there were many times when seawater was choked from the throat. Huff, huff. As the organs in the throat gradually recovered, Han Dong also began to gasp for breath. At the same time, there was a panting sound from not far away. Grimm, who had just closed the Chaos Stone Gate, also looked tired, lying in a position similar to Guyu, leaning against the wall and gasping for breath. This kind of fatigue came from the consciousness level, and both of them needed a long time to slowly recover. Physical healing would be of no help. When the panting slowed down slightly, Han Dong and Grimm's eyes met, and at the same time, they showed a kind of friendly smile. Han Dong spoke first. "Thank you, Mr. Grimm. This is the maximum victory I want. I think the old kings watching the London game will be very satisfied with this result." Grimm's tongue licked along his face. Even if he was tired, his eyes still flashed with a kind of excitement. "Indeed, we can't find a better answer. The people above us will definitely be satisfied and will definitely reward the two of us. Also, I personally feel great. I haven't fought like this in a long time. According to our agreement, I can promise you one thing that is within my power. If you want to learn any crazy secret techniques, obtain a crazy secret treasure that matches you, or go to the Chaos Palace where my father is, I can apply for it. There is a high chance that it will happen. Tell me, what do you want?" When Han Dong made this agreement with Green, he had already determined the answer in his heart. "I hope you can cancel the bet with Miss Sally. This is my only request." In the past, Glenn might have been angry. After all, Sally was the most suitable hybrid demon as a partner among those of the same level. Moreover, in Grimm's life plan, he was prepared to use Sally's body to give birth to a large number of children in order to obtain a city of his own descendants. But now, Glenn had found someone more interesting than Sally. "Haha, I knew you were interested in Sally. What? Do you want to reproduce with Sally through your hybrid human genes? This may be a good choice. After all, humans as a whole are difficult to be recognized by us, but hybrids are a different story. It's just a simple agreement with Miss Sally, nothing else." Han Dong really did not have any other intentions. During this trip to London, when he learned about the concept of the prime body, he had been thinking about how to establish a friendly relationship with this group of hybrid demons. After witnessing the power of the prime body, Han Dong was even more certain that this group of monsters would inevitably become king-level existences in the future and wield the power of the world. And the corresponding value of such a relationship would surpass all the treasures and gifts at this stage. "Haha, I'll promise you. About Sally, forget about it. Anyway, I need to focus on the breakthrough problem now. It's really uncomfortable to fight such a trashy, mythical existence. Next time, if this group of low-energy craftsmen comes through the portal again, or like that idiot said, they will launch a large-scale invasion. I'll play with them. It's about time, let's go out." As Grimm controlled the space in his body, Han Dong immediately felt a gentle repulsion force, slowly squeezing out from a cave, due to the death of the Golden Saint and the failure of all the saint-level life forms. The world invasion had ended, and the relevant space that was radiated to this world was retracted by the Gate of Destiny, including the Vortex Saint, the Wonderland used in the finals, and some vegetation and soil that appeared outside the church, similar to the spatial model. When Han Dong slid out of Grimm's body, he directly appeared at the church headquarters. All the individuals who participated in the selection and survived were gathered here. The black goat, Sally, was looking at Han Dong with a complicated gaze. Although it was shocking that Han Dong joined forces with Grimm to kill a mythical existence. But as for her personal bet, Sally still believed that Grimm would win. Besides, the Evernight priest was at the altar at the front of the church, providing divine healing to the severely injured Seventh Prime, Hope. One must know that Hope alone intercepted the Golden Saint's powerful substitute outside. He collided with such a divine creation with pure physical strength. Besides, Z, who had ascended to the saint level and succeeded in inheriting the vortex divinity, also appeared here as a mythical body. The burlap sack that used to be on his head had been removed, and in its place was a cone-shaped spiral head. Although he had shed the essence of a hybrid demon, his heart was still here. The loyalty of a hybrid demon was unshakable. Z could be said to be a London death row prisoner chosen by Father Lysos, who was involved in the Vortex incident and was given a chance to gain freedom and grow. As long as he could win and successfully merge with the divinity, he would be absolved of the crimes he had committed in London and continue to be loyal to the Evernight Mother with a new identity. From the beginning, none of the hybrid demons were interested in the saint-level world. Z succeeded. However, there were hundreds and thousands of death row prisoners who were chosen to participate in the Vortex incident and all of them died in the process. The first thing Grimm did when he returned to the church was not to talk to Sally about the bet, nor did he ask about his teammate Hope's condition. Instead, he went straight to the fifth prime, Eugene, who was resting in the corner of the church. "Eugene, are you selling this eyeball?" If it weren't for Eugenius, Grimm wouldn't have been able to fight against the saint in the final battle. This eye was unique. Even in his father's treasure vault, he couldn't find such a growing treasure. Not for sale. TSK. So boring. But thanks anyway. Grimm reluctantly spat out the sticky eyeball from his mouth and returned it to Eugene. When Eugene reinserted the eyeball into his body, the battle video that took place in Grimm's body was immediately transmitted to his brain. This guy. Eugene was not surprised by Grimm's performance at all, because he knew that Grimm had such strength. The only thing that surprised him was Han Dong's ability to clash with the saint through the domain, and the crazy laughter that led to the saint's death. Another lunatic. Chapter 11:27. Just as Grimm and Eugene were talking about that eye, on Han Dong's end, he made an okay gesture to Sally, who was not far away, indicating that he had completed the task. But Sally didn't quite understand the gesture, or rather, she didn't quite believe that Han Dong could really win the bet. When she tried to communicate through the consciousness established in advance, she found that Han Dong's state of consciousness was very weak, and even supporting a consciousness connection was very difficult. Injured on the consciousness level, Sally didn't care about her identity as a prime body at all, and stepped in front of Han Dong with goat hooves. Without waiting for the latter to react, Sally actually kissed him in a human way. This kind of mouth-to-mouth might have an ambiguous meaning between humans. For Sally, however, it had another meaning. Tentacles from the Black Forest entered Han Dong's brain through his mouth. Han Dong also knew that Sally was doing it for his own good, so he removed all the defenses in his brain. The tentacles that touched the brain secreted a kind of primary life fluid from the Black Forest, which had a certain healing effect on consciousness injuries. Han Dong, who had originally looked tired, became energetic after the brain treatment in the form of a kiss. Seeing that Han Dong's condition had improved, the purple tentacles scraping the surface of his brain also took the opportunity to establish a consciousness connection. What did your gesture mean just now? It means the problem of the bet has been solved. This answer made Sally's body tremble, and purple tentacles appeared on many parts of her body. She continued to ask excitedly, "Did you really win the bet for me? How is that possible? Grimm, that guy on this kind of thing?" "No, it's just that the problem of the bet has been solved. Grimm did touch the miracle first and won the bet. But at my request, he gave up the bet with you." "What on earth happened?" "Let's talk about the details later. It's something like this. As the purple tentacles came out of his mouth, the two separated. At this time, Han Dong waved at Grimm, who was not far away. Grimm hurriedly put on a kind of sick smile and waved back at the same time. The relationship between the two seemed to be very close. "What?" This scene scared Sally so much that she took 2 steps back. She reassessed Han Dong from head to toe. She could not understand what kind of person could become friends with Grimm. This was completely beyond her knowledge. Not to mention that anyone who came into contact with Grimm would be affected by his madness. There was no hybrid demon of the same level who could receive such a friendly response from Grimm. Han Dong continued to explain. "Basically, I will help Grimm achieve the greatest victory, and he will be rewarded for killing the Holy Messenger. In return, I asked him to give up his bet with you too." Actually, being able to establish a friendly relationship with Green is already the greatest reward. I'm just conveniently canceling the bet that will make Miss Sally uncomfortable. Sally suddenly realized something and hurriedly asked, "What's the matter? Could it be that from the very beginning, you never thought of competing with Grimm head-on, but instead decided to win in such a way?" "Haha, more or less. After all, even if I took out all my trump cards, I still wouldn't be Green's match. When I understood the nature of the London game, I no longer considered any plans related to internal strife. Everything was based on a win-win situation. Of course, it wasn't easy to achieve such a result. If it weren't for Grimm's uniqueness, Both of us might have been killed. Sally was speechless for a moment. Although she had sensed that Han Dong was not simple when she first met him and was completely unaffected by his charm, Han Dong's performance had exceeded her expectations time and time again. After the incident is over, will you return to the human side? There's a high probability that I'll stay here. After all, the final goal of the human army is also the city of London. I'll meet them here later. In my opinion, the London incident is not over yet. When we return to the surface, we may get new instructions. Okay, at this moment, the Evernight priest, who had finished treating Hopper, suddenly appeared behind Han Dong. Nicholas, come here for a moment. Okay. The priest brought Han Dong to the confessional of the church alone. You did well. I didn't expect that the two of you could kill the Golden Saint. Although his mythical grade was not high, he majored in defense. Even if I wanted to kill him, I would have to pay a high price. In a while, I'll integrate the parallel space and we'll return to the real world. You and Grimm will also receive the reward personally given by the Evernight Mother, which is the final prize of this London game. As for how you kill the saint, I'm not interested. I just want to know, why did you come up with such a dangerous plan to kill the saint? It's the plan I proposed. After understanding the nature of the London game, combined with the existing conditions, I wanted to maximize the victory and fight for my pride. The priest was slightly interested and asked, "Oh, have you realized the nature of the London incident?" Han Dong replied calmly, "That's right. The reason why the old kings did not intervene in the situation of world erosion. It was because they wanted to let the other party know that this level of invasion did not require them to take action. They did not even need the appearance of mythical bodies. They only needed to rely on the few of us to completely crush their invasion plan. They even treated the invasion as a trial for us. Moreover, in addition to the performance of our juniors, we also need to prove one thing to these ignorant craftsmen through you. Father, the loyalty of the hybrid demons is unshakable. As for your position, Father, I can completely confirm it through my conversation with you and the London title deed in your hands. Thank you, Father Lysos, for everything you've done for this London game. I believe you must be carrying a lot of burden. After understanding the nature of all this, how can we let them go so easily? Even this Golden Saint, in my opinion, there's no need to let him go. We must not leave anyone alive. Only by killing all of them can we maximize the victory, and the death of the Golden Saint will be our best response." Following Han Dong's speech, the priest's eyes flashed with a rare black luster, expressing his appreciation for this young man. As expected of the talent chosen by Lord Grey Matter, let's not talk about how the mother will receive you and what kind of reward will she give you. As for me, I will provide you with the greatest convenience. Even if you want to be a bishop in the Evernight Church, it's completely possible. Can I? Han Dong was still very interested in the authority in London. After all, he would meet up with the expeditionary army here in the future. It would be much more convenient to have a certain level of authority. If you need it, come to the Evernight Church to see me directly. Okay, the conversation ended. The priest used the London title deed in his hands to integrate the parallel world and reality. The scene remained unchanged. Everyone was still in the Evernight Church. However, there was one more person here. The aura she emitted could suppress everyone, including Green and the Evernight priest. A woman in a black gauze dress was hanging in the middle of the church. The Evernight priest and Z immediately knelt down to the woman. "Greetings, Mother." Han Dong also recognized this woman immediately. It was the woman who received him in the lobby when Han Dong checked into the hotel. This is the hotel girl? Chapter 1128. Old King. It was the highest level of existence that humans knew about hybrid demons. It was a supreme existence that had completely penetrated the gate of truth and left its name in the gate of truth. Moreover, the number of kings that a world could accommodate was limited. As the world expanded, the number of kings that could be accommodated would also increase correspondingly. To obtain the throne, it was different from the early development of an individual. As long as one grew to a certain extent, one could advance. If a mythical body wanted to grow to the level of the old king, one must have qualification. The selection of kings in any world was extremely strict. The existence that could be crowned must be an extremely outstanding existence in a certain aspect. In the hybrid demon world, there was also a set of stricter rules for the control and issuance of qualification. The existence that could successfully be crowned as the old king was definitely the existence that stood at the top of the hybrid demons. They must have been the best among the people of the same level and had the title of original body for a period of time. At present, the world invasion ended. Father Lysos used the title deed to combine the outer and inner worlds into one and restore the original appearance of the City of London. The individuals who participated in the London game also returned to reality smoothly. When the Mother of the Night in the church descended, except for Grimm, who only bowed slightly, the other individuals knelt on the ground with a sincere posture from the heart. This was the most basic etiquette. Grimm could not perform such etiquette due to bloodline problems. At this time, the London title deed in the hands of the priest also floated back to the hands of the original owner. Han Dong once had some doubts about the identity of the hotel girl. When gradually understanding the nature of the London game, Han Dong once suspected that the missing mother might have a camouflage ability to lurk in the surface of London, playing the role of extradition and supervision. At this time, the mother of Ng, who took over the title deed, moved. The rope that bound her neck turned into a dark tentacle and retracted back into her body. When it slowly descended from the sky, dark tentacles that stuck to each other unfolded behind the mother, forming a large skirt that covered the entire church area. The dark tentacles were flat and sticky. The whole body exuded a smell similar to a mixture of musk and rotten reptiles. Any area that was contaminated by this kind of tentacle would, without exception, be dyed with a deep dark color. It gave people a feeling that they would fall into the dark area if they stepped into it. As for the mother's body, his silky black hair covered his face, revealing only his shiny black lips. This kind of appearance was relatively gentle, and to a large extent, it still maintained a humanoid form, which did not put too much pressure on the people present. It was different from the old Lower King that Han Dong had seen in Stuart Manor. The other party had shown his true form, and even had a tendency to attack the Holy City. Grimm was also surprised. He could clearly feel that his insanity domain could not spread out in the darkness, and the cave could not be built smoothly, due to the uniqueness of his identity. Grimm had seen many of the Lower Kings on different occasions, but the invisible pressure from Mother Evernight had completely exceeded his expectations. Oh, it's actually this strong, very soon. The darkness released by the biological mother completely covered the church area. At the same time, a black quagmire formed under the feet of Han Dong and Glenn. The two of them quickly sank into the water. Although the smell was a little unpleasant, the stickiness was also uncomfortable. Immersed in this dark liquid, the two of them immediately received a deep level of restoration. Sally had just helped to restore some of their consciousnesses. Now, with the help of the biological mother, they were completely restored. Just as the injuries were healed, the two of them were drawn from the bottom of the quagmire at the same time and landed in an extremely dark palace. Even if Han Dong had the support of the little magic eye and the imitation of the dark inhabitants, the visible range was only 3 meters. Needless to say, this was the biological mother's palace. It was located at the bottom of the Thames River. The size of the palace was equivalent to the size of London. It could be said that it was an underground world. As previously received information, the biological mother stayed in the lower part of London all year round, carrying out a series of unknown secret activities. The management of London and the surface activities were handed over to Father Lysos. Han Dong and Glenn were located in the center of the palace. The biological mother was sitting on her exclusive throne. Deep black well, it was similar to the style of a stone well. The bottom of the well was carved with stones with worshipful faces. Their bodies propped up the stone well. The surface of the stones that constituted the well structure was engraved with ancient dark inscriptions. Such a throne could either sit on the edge of the well or completely immerse itself in the bottom of the well. Currently, the biological mother who looked like a hotel girl sat on the edge of the well, staring at the two young people who had made great contributions to the London incident. First Prime, Mad Devil Christopher J. Glenn, and Warren Nicholas from the Human City State. Thank you for your efforts in the London game and your great contributions to the City of London. I will give you the right to call me by my name. My original name, engraved between the truth, is Nyogata. As for biological mother, it is just an honorific title for my children in London. You can stop using it. Okay. Due to your outstanding performance in the London game, especially the killing of the Golden Saint, the king has increased the estimated reward and even changed the type of reward. Christopher J. Glenn, you will receive a special reward from the Nameless Fog. Oh, a gift from Mr. Fogg. I'm really looking forward to it. Glenn couldn't help but rub his hands, looking a little excited. Then, from the palm of the biological mother, a turbid crystal ball was slowly squeezed out. With the appearance of the crystal ball, the palace area was shrouded in a thick layer of fog. The chaos orb that carries the eternal fog should be compatible with your abyss characteristics to create a high-quality, external body with the characteristics of the fog. This is good stuff. The moment Glenn took the crystal ball, he was immediately pulled by the darkness and returned to the original church area. Han Dong was a little surprised that Glenn was quickly excluded. It was as if the biological mother deliberately sent Glenn away in advance to talk to her about some private matters. Han Dong's hunch was right. Just when there were only two people left in the palace, the biological mother suddenly floated down from the surface of the throne, revealing a strange smile on her lips. The biological mother landed, and when her feet touched the ground, the floor of the palace, which seemed to be made of black crystal, had actually transformed into large, flat, sticky tentacles. The center of the palace had transformed into a large, soft bed made of tentacles. In the blink of an eye, Han Dong's posture changed from standing to lying down. His head just happened to be resting on the thigh of the biological mother. Through the thin gauze dress, he could smell the scent of a loving mother. Sticky liquid pulled silk threads between her fingers. The biological mother gently stroked Han Dong's head with 5 fingers. Such contact made the biological mother couldn't help but stick out a flat tongue, excitedly licking the corner of her mouth. Ah, what a perfect head. It's almost the same as what I expected Lord Walker to feel. It's even younger and full of vitality, and there are some new things in it. For a moment, Han Dong didn't know how to deal with the situation in front of him, so he could only lie down quietly. Chapter 1129. The bed made up of wriggling dark tentacles was slightly wriggling against the curvature of his body. His head was pillowed on the soft and sticky thighs. The scent of his mother's body constantly entered his nostrils, making Han Dong feel at ease. It even made Han Dong want to immerse himself in the darkness. However, when his mother touched the surface of his face with her sticky fingers, Han Dong immediately sobered up because of the touch at the brain level. Do you know? Because of your outstanding performance, the Walker became the biggest winner in London's gambling house. Your reward has been replaced with a medium-sized land deed, attachable type. Medium-sized land deed, attachable type? Yes, the Walker considered that your existing equipment is enough. He specially gave you such a land deed. This attachment type of land deed allows you to attach to any large main city under his command, including my City of London. As the owner of the City of London, I also allow you to establish a sub-city or neighboring manor. Construction workers and engineers can be lent to you. Can I attach to any large main city under the command of any Walker? Okay. Combined with the authority granted by Father Lysos, Han Dong already had a plan in mind. I have construction workers and engineers here. I only hope that my mother can provide me with some material support, especially some experimental materials. Experimental? Yes, I'm personally interested in technology. I will consider attaching to the City of London to build an experimental territory. That's not a problem. Seeing that his mother was in a good mood and had special thoughts about him, Han Dong also took the opportunity to get more permission from his mother. It doesn't seem good to call her by her name. Let's call her Mother. Mother, I may use the City of London's Gate of Destiny during my stay in the City of London. You also know that I originated from human beings and need to use the Gate of Destiny to grow. Use it as you wish, but the Gate of London is in an important stage of transformation. It is best to ask me or Father Lysos before using it. Okay, after some communication, Han Dong's request for all activities in the City of London was approved by his mother. He even felt that his biological mother had completely regarded Han Dong as her long-lost, illegitimate son. During the exchange, his mother did not stop gently stroking Han Dong's head. This kind of caress was like a loving mother's love for her child, but also like a close appreciation of a piece of art. Han Dong originally wanted to talk about the Human Expeditionary Army, but in the end, he didn't say it here. After all, it would take some time for the Expeditionary Army to arrive. It would be more appropriate to wait until Han Dong had a certain status in London before making the relevant request. That's all for now. Next, I have something very important to convey to you. What is it? It's about the London Games. Downloadable content. This downloadable content is much bigger than the game you've experienced. It's expected to be released in a year and a half. As expected, Han Dong had already guessed this in advance. The so-called downloadable content might be a dimensional war. As a black land deed was handed over to Han Dong, his body once again sank into the black quagmire and fell back into the church area. The priest in charge of the church affairs had arranged for the relevant personnel to be seated in the pews in the church hall. Nicholas, sit here. As soon as Han Dong landed in the aisle of the church, people on both sides waved to him at the same time. On the left side, Black Goat, Miss Sally sat together with Horror Hunter, Campbell, and the demon monk controlled by Shane's parasites. Sally showed a slightly charming smile and waved to him. On the right side, Green, Eugene, and Hope, who had just recovered his body, sat together. Green showed a kind smile and waved to Han Dong. Finally, Han Dong still walked to Green on the right side, and at the same time, he sent a message to Sally. Don't refuse Green's request. After all, you've just established a good relationship with him. Miss Sally, if there's anything, let's talk about it later when we get out. Understood. Although she verbally said understood, Sally's expression was not very good. She stared at Han Dong with her purple eyes for a long time before looking away. However, Han Dong did not care. He had a more legitimate reason to sit with Green. In terms of importance, Green was naturally more important. After all, there were a total of 3 original bodies sitting here. As soon as he sat down, a hand with slender black nails rested on Han Dong's shoulder, and a dry face followed, with a sense of suction from the abyss. Nicholas, what's your reward? A title deed. This group of people is really stingy. Your contribution is the same as mine, and they actually sent you away with a title deed. However, you seem to have a lot of treasures on you. I'm lucky. I've obtained a lot of good things in the Destiny space, but I haven't fully mastered them yet. Perhaps the old kings also took this into consideration and gave me a title deed as a reward. After all, I still need a title deed. That's right. Your mobile title deed can expand its area through the same type of devouring. By the way, we're discussing something to see if you're interested. As Green spoke, he smiled and pointed to the green-haired Eugenus and Hope, who looked like a savage beside him. The ancients have completed the complete transformation of a certain gate of destiny, and purebred hybrid demons can enter it. We're thinking about finding time to go in and play. Since you're very familiar with the Destiny space, are you interested in being our tour guide? Now, Hope and Sally have confirmed to join. Eugenus is too suspicious and is still thinking about it. If Nicholas joins the team as a tour guide, it will be more convenient for us. When it came to matters related to Destiny, Han Dong immediately became serious. It's very risky. The Destiny space will strictly estimate your strength and give a world event of the same difficulty. Not to mention that you're entering as a hybrid demon and will be severely targeted. Moreover, I'm not at the same level as you, so it will be very troublesome. Han Dong now only wanted to steadily reach the level of a 5th grade knight, and then try to break through to the next big stage, corresponding to the atavism body between elite knights and hybrid demons. If he followed this group of monsters and entered the gate of destiny again as a hybrid demon, he didn't know what kind of abnormal events he would encounter. No matter how risky it is, I personally want to go and have a look. Give me a definite answer. Will you go or not? I can go, but I have to reach the atavism body of the hybrid demons. Moreover, I also hope that you can resist your curiosity. If you rashly enter without any experience, there will be too many unstable factors. You might even be targeted unfairly, and the probability of dying is very high. I know this in my heart. After all, even my father warned me about the dangers of the destiny space. Okay, I'll wait until you reach the atavism body level, then we'll go in together. Okay, Han Dong was a little helpless. This time, he was tied to the hybrid demons again. Moreover, Han Dong had already heard about it from Mr. Black and White. When one reached the next stage of Elite Knight through the door opening, the difficulty of the Destiny event would greatly increase. The Elite Knights in the Holy City would not be stuck in a cool-down period of 1 year, and most of them would spend many years preparing. Chapter 11:30. In a short time, under Grimm's recommendation, Han Dong became one with this group of prime bodies. Hopper even proposed to arm wrestle. After all, Hopper heard from Grimm that it was Han Dong's help that was able to successfully kill the Golden Saint, and Han Dong played a key role. Strength was not Han Dong's specialty. Decisively rejecting, Han Dong had seen Hopper's strength, and there was no need to test it out. However, when Han Dong rejected, he also mentioned a problem. In terms of pure strength, there's a girl in our human city who has a similar unlimited growth characteristic as you. Her muscles are always in a state of growth and are not even limited by level. This sentence immediately piqued Hope's interest. There is such a person among the humans? If there's a chance to meet in the future, maybe we can find out the secret of unlimited strength. Okay, during the chat with Hopper, Han Dong also noticed that Eugenius, who had green hair and was emitting a foul smell, looked at him from time to time, as if he had something to say. As Grimm was sandwiched in the middle, even if he used his consciousness telepathy, it could be sucked into the abyss. He could only signal with his eyes that he would wait for a chance to talk to Han Dong alone. Han Dong was still very happy to talk to the prime bodies in private. At this moment, a dark breath came again. Mother appeared on the high altar of the church with a new appearance, no longer looking like the receptionist from before. Dense, dark tentacles clustered around Mother's body and slowly emerged from the ground. When Mother spoke, her voice overflowed from the dark area of the church and went straight to everyone's mind. Thank you again for your contributions to London, especially Father Lyso's sacrifice for this incident, and Grimm and Nicholas who killed the mythical invaders. Next, I will say something very important. The London game is not over yet. What you're currently playing is only the first half of the game, which is also a small step that acts as a fuse. According to the prophecy of the Void, the second half of the London game will officially kick off in a year and a half, and the scale of the game will be much larger than this time, and there will be more old kings who will keep an eye on the game. And that includes the supreme origin of chaos. Father actually came to watch the battle. Isn't he very busy recently? Green followed up with a look of surprise. Yes. Glenn excitedly began to drill the holes on his body with his fingers. It seems that the second half will be very interesting. Otherwise, Father wouldn't waste time on this kind of thing. I'm really looking forward to it. His mother continued. Therefore, everyone present here has been granted the right to be long-term residents of the City of London. You can choose to stay until the start of the second half, or you can come back in time before the start of the second half. Due to the scale of the second half, other protoplasmic bodies would also arrive. I will personally inform you of the specific situation before the game starts. The city of London has been severely damaged because of this game. Father Lysos and I will be working on the city's recovery. If you have any questions, you can ask the priest in private. After a brief explanation of the next round of the game, everyone left the church. His mother and the priest also threw themselves into the follow-up recovery work in London as quickly as possible. When Han Dong left, the priest shot him a special look, indicating that Han Dong could contact him through any church of Evernight at any time to obtain the relevant position. On the streets of London, the protoplasmic bodies and the powerful atavistic body mantis demons gathered together and talked about their next itinerary. This game has tired me out. I have to go back to the Chaos Palace. Nicholas, do you want to go back with me? However, I have to ask Father first. Han Dong quickly waved his hand and refused. There's no need for that. My current stage is not enough. Let's go after I open the door. To be able to receive a direct invitation from Green to go to the Chaos Palace at the center of the universe, the seventh protoplasmic hopper could not help but show an envious expression. That's right. You shouldn't be able to adapt to the environment in the palace at this stage. Then I'll take my leave first. See you next time. Green was also anxious to use the endless mist bead in his hand to create a new external body. And the way Green left the stage was very special. Through the radiation of the madness domain, it affected Han Dong's body. He found a special hole on Han Dong's body and went in. He returned to the Center Grotto and went directly to the palace at the center of the universe through the Chaos Stone Gate. After Green left, everyone, including Sally and Hopper, asked the biggest question in their minds. Nicholas, how did you do it? Green's body has mad blood flowing in it. Even the protoplasmic body can't come into contact with him normally. Han Dong helplessly scratched his head. Maybe it's because of the similar attributes and the fact that we work together to kill the Golden Saint. Mythical bodies are really hard to kill. If Green and I made any mistakes along the way, we would have died. This kind of cooperation also played a role. Moreover, our personalities are quite compatible. As soon as he said this, everyone's evaluation of Han Dong went up a level. After all, there is almost no existence in the hybrid demon circle that could match Mad Devil Green's personality. Hopper also said with a look of regret, Sigh, looks like I still can't get along with Green normally. I'll take my leave too. The matter here is over. I have to respond to the summons of the ultimate ancestral god. See you next time. After saying this, Hopper jumped hundreds of meters into the air with pure brute force and landed directly at the city gate. The next one was Miss Sally. There was also a trace of regret on her face that was covered by a black veil. Nicholas, will you stay here? Yes. I just received the summons from Mother. I have to go back to the distant Black Forest. If you have time to come over, you can use this thing to open the portal to the Black Forest in the main cities. After saying this, Sally took out a withered branch that was similar to a finger from her pocket. When Han Dong took it, he could feel a strong sense of vitality. He even felt that if he was poked by this branch, he would get pregnant. It was probably a withered branch from the Black Forest. Then I'll take my leave. Sally left in a relatively slow way. She wanted to see if Han Dong would ask her to stay or want to send her off. Who knew? When Sally had gone about 10 steps and looked back, Sally said, not only did Han Dong not ask her to stay, but he also followed the green-haired eugenist and sneaked into a house. It seemed that they had some important private matters to discuss. Sigh. After a sigh, Sally also disappeared from the street, on the other side of Han Dong. In fact, he also wanted to send Sally off. He even wanted her to stay for a few days to talk about the Black Forest. But there was something more important at the moment. Just after Green left through the hole, Eugenist immediately conveyed an extremely shocking message to Han Dong through a private voice transmission. He directly mentioned the two keywords brain and subspace prison. Chapter 1131. A London Street. Inside a certain low-rise building. The two Dar dwellers who lived here had been infected by a stable plague. Many green compound eyes grew on their bodies, turning them into eugenist's eyeball slaves. They were responsible for monitoring the outside of the building and ensuring that the conversation that took place here wouldn't leak out. In a basement compartment attached to the building, the walls were covered with eyeballs and green mucus, completely isolated from the outside world. In addition to Eugenus' eyeball characteristics, his brain was also equivalent to a huge ancient library. A large amount of knowledge passed down by the ancients was stored in Eugenus' brain. If one were to choose a think tank in the current body of origin, Eugenus would be one of them. However, there was another existence in the body of origin that surpassed Eugenus in terms of brain. Through my observation of you, I discovered that you seem to only know how to use your brain. You don't seem to know the nature of this brain. Am I right? Yes. Han Dong was willing to follow him because he wanted to know more from Eugenus. Based on my observation of the structure of your tentacles and the strength you displayed, I can roughly infer the origin of your brain. However, it's only the origin. As for how it was created, I'm afraid only the former king in charge of this project knows. That's enough. Mr. Eugenus, can you elaborate? Eugenus reached out and touched his eyeballs, showing a different posture of contemplation. This involves rather ancient information. Even my brain library only has some remnant pages stored in the depths. I can tell you, but I also have a request. Speak. I hope you can spare some time to make a trip to the South Pole with me. The South Pole? What for? The last ruins of the ancients are buried in the depths of the South Pole. That's also my homeland. It will take you about a month or so. After all, there's no portal that can directly reach the South Pole. The ancients have completely sealed off that place. We need to use basic physics to get there. Don't worry, I'm only letting you take a look as a visitor. Your brain involves gray matter. Even the ancients wouldn't dare to do anything to you. Also, I believe you can get more information about your brain from them. All right, this wasn't a one-sided deal. Han Dong had heard of the term the Ancient Ones from Miss Sally. The Shug's advanced mantis demon that Eugenus belonged to was created by the ancients. Some of the hybrid demon technology also originated from this group of ancient existences. They seem to be scientists with extremely high status among the hybrid demons. Since they were both engaged in scientific research, Han Dong himself also wanted to get in touch with them. Perhaps there would be additional gains, so he agreed without hesitation. Seeing that Han Dong had agreed, Eugenus began to talk about his own understanding. You have the smell of a toad on you. You should have been in K and even seen a bufo, right? Yes. Since that is the case, you must have entered the dreamlands before and should know the meaning of its existence. Considering the cataclysm that led to the destruction of a world, the dream world, which was jointly created by many former kings, has a dream channel with our world while maintaining absolute independence. Once the cataclysm happened, the destruction of the world could not be stopped. The old king and the important life forms would head to dreamlands as the new world. In other words, it is a world sanctuary. That's right, the term world sanctuary is well used. The technology in your brain is also a type of sanctuary technology, and it existed before the Dreamlands project. It was called Prison World. Prison World, Han Dong repeated out of shock. As for what kind of independent world it is, I don't have much information in my brain. I only know that this project was rejected for some reason. Then it was replaced by the more complete Dreamlands project and completely abandoned. To be able to come into contact with this kind of worldwide project, one must be in a high position. Therefore, when I observed the uniqueness of your brain, I was also quite shocked. I didn't expect an abandoned worldwide project would appear in a skull in such a manner. And such an important skull was installed in the body of a human. That's all I know about the prison world. Perhaps the ancients might know more about it. Thank you. I have been trying to find a way to understand the origin of the skull. When should we depart? Anytime. You seem to still have something to do in London, right? It's okay. If it's only for a month, these things can be pushed back a little. Just give me a day to reorganize. Eugenus threw out information about the origin of the faceless skull here. Han Dong's interest was completely aroused, and he couldn't wait to delve deeper. Okay, tomorrow at this time, we will meet at the North Gate. Okay. Eugenus didn't intend to leave and planned to stay in the basement for a night. Considering the stench that constantly emitted from Eugenus' body and the constant sense of being stared at, Han Dong didn't want to spend the night with Eugenius. Moreover, Han Dong still had things to do. Not to mention the matter of swallowing the land deed and finding a priest to get a position, there was still a temporary guest living in Han Dong's mobile land deed. Moreover, the reason why Han Dong went deep into London this time was because of this guest compulsion. The land deed was opened outside the city. Han Dong immediately went to the private theater at the bottom of the main house. The theater was in a strange state. As the holder of the land deed, Han Dong didn't feel the existence of the yellow-robed man's body. A large amount of fog and white tentacles filled the theater. The tentacles that grew on the stage were playing a melody that could affect the soul. Carefully passing through these tentacles that could hook the soul, Han Dong found a white gift box and a letter on the piano in the center of the stage. Han Dong reached out to touch the gift box. The fog and white tentacles that filled the theater quickly retreated into the gift box like liquid. Let's look at the contents of the letter first. Maybe there's an explanation of what's in the gift box. The unordered text on the letter needed to be read with the little magic eye. I can give you 95 points for your performance in the London game. You have been my messenger for so long, and I have nothing substantial to give you. This gift box is my personal gift. I have an urgent matter to attend to in the Holy City, so I will leave first. The Holy City? Han Dong's primary focus was on the destination that the yellow-robed man was about to go. For some reason, intuition told Han Dong that the yellow-robed man's trip to the Holy City might not be to ask Mr. Black and White for the author, but for something else. Chapter 1132. The surface of the box was engraved with a yellow seal similar to the one on Han Dong's arm. Gift from the yellow robe. He carefully opened the box with his finger. What appeared in front of Han Dong was a white jade-like tentacle. Fine and warm, white and flawless. It was more like a jade artifact in the shape of a tentacle. Could this be a tentacle taken from yellow-robed one's main body? When Han Dong touched the tentacle, he could feel the stickiness in his soul. If he was not careful, he might even leave his soul on the surface of the white jade tentacle. Han Dong brought the white jade tentacle back to the brain lab for further examination. During the examination, the scanner let out a series of alarms. It was not a danger alarm, but a beneficial alarm. This meant that the white jade tentacle was of great benefit to Han Dong. White jade tentacle of Carcosa. Introduction. Legend has it that in the ancient city of Carcosa, there were many believers of the Yellow-Robed King. They were willing to sacrifice their souls to the Supreme Lord. Talented Yellow-Robe believers would be promoted to soul catchers. They would be responsible for absorbing, refining, and solidifying the souls of their devotees. There were only a handful of outstanding people who had a certain probability of being recruited into the imperial palace and obtaining the qualification to become a royal necromancer. They would obtain a shedding tentacle from the yellow-robed king. At the same time, the souls of tens of thousands of believers would be refined and fused with the tentacle to obtain a white jade tentacle. It would be used to symbolize the identity of a royal necromancer. At the same time, the purity of the white jade tentacle would determine the status of the royal necromancer. Quality, epic plus, flawless. Type, soul type material. Purpose, can be used to forge equipment or upgrade the faceless skull. A token that symbolizes the identity of a royal necromancer under the yellow robe. It seems to be the best one. No wonder it has such a strong, soul-sucking effect. This material was infinitely close to legendary grade and could be considered the best material Han Dong had. However, the first thing that came to Han Dong's mind was not to forge equipment, but to upgrade the skull. It has been almost 2 years since I upgraded the faceless skull to LV3 in Redry Town and opened the Void Laboratory. In order to upgrade the skull to the next level, he would need a large amount of high-quality cell essence. If this thing is used to level up, what can it do? Han Dong's question was immediately answered by the brain's AI. If Carcosa's white jade beard is completely used for cell growth, it will be a great success. It can offset the total amount of essence needed from LV3 to LV4. At the same time, when you upgrade your skull, you will be given an additional prison expansion option. Add an additional soul laboratory to the prison experimental area. It could directly offset half of the essence. Was it possible to build another soul laboratory like the Void Laboratory? Once the addition was successful, I will be able to add a soul attribute to my existing tentacles. I'm looking forward to it. Although during this period of time, there was no description of Han Dong extracting the cell essence. In fact, as long as the target's quality was good, Han Dong would quickly draw blood after the event. It had already become a physiological habit due to the increased appetite of the cell mass and the improved quality of the food. So far, Han Dong had only collected 15% of the required amount for the upgrade. I should wait until the skull could be directly upgraded. Although the item was good, it did not have any substantial improvement for Han Dong. He kept the jade tentacles back into the gift box and continued to store them in the deepest part of the private theater. Immediately after, Han Dong contacted the priest through a Black Knight branch, saying that he had to leave London for a month or two. When he returned, he would apply to the priest for the relevant position. During the communication, the priest seemed to have considered where Han Dong might go in advance and asked with a little concern, "A month or two. Where do you plan to go?" "Follow Eugenus to the South Pole." "Sure enough. Are you going to the last ruins of the ancients?" "It seems that Eugenus gave you an offer that you can't refuse." "Have you ever thought of a question? Why is a powerful race like the ancients almost extinct on Earth? Is it not because of the prehistoric cataclysm? The cataclysm of the world did have a heavy impact on the ancients. But the real reason for their almost extinction comes from the backlash caused by the in-depth study of technology. To a large extent, it is related to the Shuga's race they created, which is the race corresponding to Eugenus. Because the ancients are an independent race that does not believe in any of the old kings, the problem is quite complicated, and I don't know much. If you decide to go, it is necessary to assess the danger. Of course, as the key winner of a London game, you have received much attention from the old kings. Basically, no hybrid demon race will dare to attack you directly. What you need to be careful of is some dangers on the back. Okay, it was necessary to assess the danger. But this trip to the South Pole was also necessary. If he could take this opportunity to figure out the imprisonment technology involved in the brain, Han Dong might know the best brain upgrade plan or unlock some new functions that Han Dong did not know yet. After explaining the relevant situation to the priest, the matter in London was postponed. You will embark on the journey tomorrow. Have a good rest today. Casually on the streets near the northern city gate, he found a hotel called Bat's Home. At the strong request of a lady in his body, he chose the most expensive room with a large independent bathroom. Splash! As soon as he entered the room, he heard the sound of water falling. Meritus, who was the battery in the later stages of the London game, appeared to be extremely tired. She lay in the bathtub and achieved the effect of charging by absorbing water. The two were very familiar with each other, so Han Dong went into the bathroom without any scruples and cleaned himself. After all, in the subsequent process of climbing the mountain, Glenn's body was contaminated with a lot of dust, and the contact with Eugenus made Han Dong's body dirty and even a little smelly. After this incident, Meritus' attitude had also undergone a change. "You are quite powerful. You can actually do this," Han Dong responded while washing his body under the shower. "Not very powerful. I didn't rely on my own strength. If it weren't for the energy and spatial perception provided by Miss Mary, I wouldn't have been able to pass Miss Sally's test." Mary slightly bit her plump, thick lips and stared at Han Dong with blurred eyes. The strong idea of reproduction was constantly magnified in her toad head. "Do you want to come over?" Just as she slowly asked this question, Tang Wulin suddenly opened his mouth. Han Dong had left the bathroom and stood at the door. He said in a gentler voice, "We have to leave tomorrow. Eugenus exudes an invisible evil aura that makes people uncomfortable. We have to pay more attention along the way. Mary, you take a good rest in the bathtub. I have to sleep for a while. Now is not the time to do physical work. The trip to the South Pole is estimated to take 1 to 2 months. There should be more free time in the middle. We will talk about it when the time comes. Travel is still very interesting. Miss Mary, you have to help more with the space. Have a good rest. Good night. Mary also learned the human way and said good night to Han Dong. She suppressed her restless mood and fell asleep in the bathtub. Chapter 1133. City of London, Northgate. Han Dong went to the rendezvous point at the appointed time. Mary Dis, who followed him, had also changed her appearance. Since the City of London retained the original British culture to a large extent, the clothing culture was naturally passed down to this group of hybrid demons who maintained a humanoid form. They set off a little earlier, and Mary bought a set of well-made clothes from a local clothing store. It was also to prepare for the trip to the South Pole. She wore a loose cotton dress with a checkered pattern on top of a pair of velvet black stockings. She wore a square collar shirt, a tie, a corduroy vest, and a light-colored woolen shawl. With Mary's slightly curled black hair and big round eyes, she looked like a young British woman. Of course, Han Dong was also afraid that Mary would get the newly bought clothes wet because of something. As a hybrid demon, Mary had a high resistance to cold, but it was limited to normal areas. The South Pole was originally the coldest area on Earth. Now, with the appearance of the hybrid demons, the average temperature of the South Pole continued to drop. It was necessary to use clothes to keep out the cold. When the two came to the North Gate, the green-haired Eugenius was already waiting there. Eugenius, are you alone? Where's Miss Luna, who was in the same team as you during the competition? Han Dong thought that Eugenius would bring the demonic bug who achieved the twin state in the competition. There's no need to bring a useless guy. And I'm going to this South Pole. It's troublesome to bring one more person. Huh? Is this the toad demon with the atavistic body? Did you use this void toad as space energy in the competition? The moment he saw Meritus, Eugenius figured out one thing. After all, Han Dong's level was only mature body as a hybrid demon. But in the competition, the energy storage he showed was higher than the average level of the atavistic body. Moreover, he seemed to be extraordinarily skilled in using space-related abilities, as if there was some external help. When the demon toad that had never shown its face in the competition appeared with Han Dong, Eugenius immediately got his answer. Yes, can we bring her along? Since it's your portable charger, it won't be a problem to bring along. Let's go. By the way, isn't Antarctica in the south? Why are we gathering at the North Gate? Because in a certain area north of London, there's a portal that leads directly to New Zealand. Of course, if this toad demon has even better spatial methods, it would be possible to directly send us to the border of Australia in K. At this point, Mary hurriedly shook her head. She couldn't do this kind of transcontinental teleportation. After all, she would have to pass through many hybrid demon territories. She would have to rely on spatial amplification devices to reach the depths of space in order to achieve smooth teleportation. Then let's go. It might take a few hours. After saying that, Eugene spat out an eyeball from his mouth. When a strange eyeball touched the ground, its pupil immediately split open. Then a large number of green tentacles drilled out from the middle, weaving into a slug-like green mount with an eyeball on top of its tentacles. The whole thing emitted a foul stench, mixed with the smell of rotten insects. Eugenius directly immersed his body into the body of the green slug, controlling the slug with his consciousness while his body slept and rested in the body cavity. At the same time, a voice came from inside the slug. Nicholas, if you don't prepare a mount, I have a few carrier eyeballs here that I can lend to you. Just by smelling the smell, Han Dong almost vomited out the breakfast in his abdomen, not to mention that he was about to enter the body of this substance. No need, I have. Count. Even if Count was 100 times unwilling, his consciousness and Han Dong's coexisted, and their senses were connected. Even as a hybrid demon, Count couldn't stand such a foul stench, and Count had a certain degree of mysophobia. There was no other way. He could only respond to Han Dong's call. Remember to prepare a mount in advance next time. I'll let it go this time. All right. Red flesh and tentacles crazily proliferated on the surface of the right arm. When the four limbs were formed, they immediately separated from the arm and became an independent whole. A long-mouthed blood dog formed by red tentacles was formed. Including the tail, it was a total of 4 meters long. Its domineering appearance was not inferior to Mad Devil Green's Hound of Yandalos at all. When the completely independent blood dog was formed, Eugenus, who had fallen asleep, opened his eyes again. Oh, a blood descendant of the atavistic body, and an independent blood descendant that has nothing to do with the blood ancestor. How rare! After all, the bloodsucker ancestor's management of his descendants is quite strict. You have a lot of things in your body. Han Dong smiled slightly. At this time, Count still gave him face. Eugenus, lead the way. I'll follow you. Okay. From the lower end of the green slug, densely packed, small eyes grew. Through a kind of pure eye power, it had an anti-gravity driving effect, similar to the operation of a maglev train. Carrying Eugenus, it rushed out at once. Han Dong, on the other hand, was not in a hurry. He let Count form 2 grooves in the back area that were easy to sit on, together with the tentacle safety belt. After Meritus and Han Dong sat down, one in front and one behind, they directly set off. Whoosh! There were blood-stained dog-foot pits on the ground, and a red blood shadow immediately kept up with the speed of the slug. After 2 hours of migration, through the London Basin and the surrounding dark forest, they came to a small valley with lush vegetation in the north of England. When they leaned on the inside, the shadows that existed here were obviously heavier, accompanied by a strong sense of being stared at. It felt like there were eyes hidden in the rock walls here, staring at the creatures that came here. We're here. The place that Eugenus led them to was located in the deepest part of a narrow rock crevice. It was also a dead end, and the sense of being stared at here was the strongest. Gurgle, gurgle, the stinky slug retracted into Eugenus' body. When it stretched out its mucus-covered arm and touched the rock wall, a large number of green eyes immediately grew from the inside. It identified and verified Eugenus' identity. The eyeball rock wall cracked open a passage leading to the inside. It was also followed by a rotten stench, like the stench of rotten meat that had been fermented in a pickle jar for several years. At this time, Meritus made 2 thin layers of water attached to the surface of the body to isolate the stench. Eugenus explained simply, because most of our race is large and difficult to control and also emits a strong smell, it is inconvenient for us to move. So our race used the technology of the ancients to build portals in dark corners of the world for our convenience. Through the portals, we can go to an island closest to the South Pole in New Zealand. When they stepped into the secret passage, a cave shining with green light appeared in front of them. Huge cables, boulders, and metal blocks were piled up into a strange square formation, and liquid tanks containing strange creatures were used as biological batteries. They followed Eugenus and stood in the center of the teleportation array. Buzz! There was a feeling of being squeezed and transported between the meat. In the blink of an eye, the 3 of them, covered in stinky mucus, had landed in completely different caves, and the cold wind was constantly squeezing in from the open cave entrance. Chapter 1134. He stepped on the stinky and sticky green liquid tentacles. Facing the direction of the cold wind, he stuck close to the extremely narrow crevice and finally left the teleportation cave built by Shogs. He stepped on the thick layer of snow. Outside the cave was the sleeping volcano in the center of the island. The foothills were covered with snow. His current position was about 800 meters vertically above the island's ground. The island was still a long way from the South Pole. When Han Dong looked as far south as possible, he could vaguely see a thin film with colorful light connecting the sky and the sea. Just as Eugenus said, the South Pole area was being sealed by some kind of technology. Even if the South Pole belonged to Eugenus' homeland, it could only be entered from the outside through the most basic physical means. Why set up such a large spatial barrier? Han Dong, who still had doubts, slowly looked down the mountain and found a relatively prosperous port town on the shore of the island. This was very strange, not to mention whether this island existed on the world map of a human era. Even if it existed, it was so far inland, and there were no valuable natural resources for export. No one would set up a town here. Even if there was a village, it was at most a group of primitive tribes that had broken away from society. What he saw was indeed a port town. Moreover, there were several large buildings that were dozens of meters tall, a relatively prosperous dock area, and large ships docked at the dock. Eugenius explained simply, almost every week there are expedition teams gathering here to seek opportunities in the South Pole. After all, the South Pole could be said to be one of the most prosperous areas on Earth before the world catastrophe. Just the treasures and technology of the ancients are enough to make people yearn for it. We will also follow an expedition team there. It is estimated to take a month. Hearing this, Han Dong finally asked the doubts in his heart. Eugenius, the race you belong to should also originate from the South Pole, right? Is there no exclusive passage? There is, but I can't use it with the two of you here. Only Shogs can cross the Shogs passage. Your genetic sequence can't pass through this special passage. You'll be deeply disintegrated midway and die completely. Moreover, this port city is also a South Pole certified city. As long as you can set off from here and go to the depths of the South Pole by normal means, you will be recognized by the ancients. Okay, Han Dong was not particularly convinced by Eugenius' explanation. Now that things had come to this, they could only follow the path he had planned. After all, they would have to travel a long sea route, and Han Dong had the advantage in this route. Moreover, not long ago during the final match, Han Dong had unlocked the deep diver form by imitating Nicole. Mammoth Town. Following an asphalt road that connected the town and the dormant volcano, when he came to this unusually prosperous port city, he immediately smelled a familiar stench, like the dead fish and pickles that were soaked in stinky boots. It seemed that most port cities would have a similar smell, a smell that was mixed with the sea. However, compared to the port cities Han Dong had been to before, which were full of mud and puddles, this city was still neat and clean. There was only a small amount of water on the asphalt roads between the cities, and there were dedicated cleaners responsible for the sanitation work in the town. Moreover, most of the residents here were dressed in clean clothes. This was not London, and there was no mandatory requirement for anthropomorphism. Therefore, the individuals active in the port town more or less revealed their own characteristics and original forms. However, they also reduced their physique to the range of 0, 5 times to 2 times that of a human. Such a small physique was more suitable for resisting the cold and riding on ships. At the same time, they also avoided unnecessary danger due to their large physique. The locals who had settled here for a long time were a group of short and fat individuals from the deep sea. Their faces were covered with squid tentacles. They sold some necessities for going to the sea to the adventurers here at a higher price. Some even sold a consecrated deep-sea possession talisman, saying that it could effectively reduce the probability of encountering a shipwreck. However, the related business in the port area was their main source of income. This group of people from the deep sea was also very happy to do business here. This port city is managed by the deep sea. As long as you pay, we are happy to help. However, we still need some connections in the port to board a better ship. We need you to do this. Okay. Under Eugenius' lead, they came to a conch-shaped building in the port area. A large number of fully armed hybrid demons of various shapes and sizes were gathered in the hall area, ready to go out to sea. There were even some individuals who had yet to reach the level of hybrid demon. It seemed that they intended to seek an opportunity to break through the hybrid demon realm through a trip to the South Pole. Han Dong and the other two concealed their auras with their respective abilities, so their level information could not be read. Only a very small number of hybrid demons with outstanding perception could detect the abnormality of the three. If they attempted to spy on them, they would be counterattacked by Eugenius' domain. In less severe cases, they would be infected with a plague and be bedridden for at least a few weeks. In more severe cases, they would immediately turn into a pool of eyeball mucus. When the people present noticed Eugenius' abnormality, They immediately revealed a frightened expression and quickly left with their teammates. In terms of danger level, Eugenius was probably second only to Mad Demon Grim among the original demons. Since Eugenius had eliminated unnecessary trouble, Han Dong only considered the matter of taking a ship. After waiting in a long line for half an hour, it was finally Han Dong's turn. "Excuse me, 3 tickets to the South Pole." What Han Dong handed over was not the common currency among hybrid demons, but an ancient coin taken from the deep sea. The face of the staff at the counter who took the coin suddenly twitched. He knew that the individual who held such a coin must be a ruler of the deep sea. He licked his eyes that were staring outside with his saliva and carefully examined the human youth in front of him. At this time, Han Dong was imitating Nicole to a certain extent. A few octopus tentacles drilled out of his arm, accompanied by a deep-sea mark on the back of his hand. At the same time, Han Dong put a finger in front of his lips and asked softly, "My friend, I need to go to the depths of the South Pole to do something more secretive. Can you arrange it here?" "No problem. Our best ship, the Coral of the Deep Sea, is docked at the dock, but there will be a group of explorers of the same status on the ship with you. We can also arrange an undersea passage for you. However, since you want to go to the South Pole, it's better to take a ship. If the way to the South Pole is not recognized, it will cause you a lot of trouble in the future." "Okay, then let's take a ship. Please wait for a moment at the back door. I'll take you there personally." Under the guidance of the staff, they came to a lighthouse building at the dock. This Coral of the Deep Sea did not seem to be docked at the dock, but in the sea. Through the lift in the lighthouse, they came to 100 meters under the sea. A huge ship made of colorful corals appeared in front of them. A special expedition team was calling for sailors to carry a large number of cargo boxes onto the ship. These cargo boxes seemed to contain some dirty things. Chapter 1135. There's still a lot of space on the back deck. Can you have some eyes? You bunch of clumsy guys, be careful. If the things here are damaged, you won't be able to compensate for it. Hey, guy in blue sneakers, hurry up. Stop dilly-dallying. If I see you trying to slack off again, don't expect to get paid. The boarding point of the deep sea coral. A 3.5-meter tall mantis demon stood there. His body was shrouded in a military green, cotton-padded jacket. He wore a steampunk-style diving helmet on his head, completely covering his face. A fierce and harsh voice came from the breathing apparatus on the front of the helmet. Some small holes and tentacles with breathing and speech functions could be faintly seen, floating slightly between the breaths. He was directing the sailors accompanying the port to transport extremely important goods. The rest of the expedition team was waiting inside the coral. Once the goods were loaded, they would set off immediately. At this time, the staff member responsible for leading the way for Han Dong came to the person in charge and explained that there were 3 other people who needed to board the ship. "What the hell? Didn't we already book the coral?" "The situation is like this." The staff member pointed to Han Dong, who was standing in the dock area of the deep sea, wearing a bird mask and a cloak, and explained the relevant situation. "Oh, deep sea messenger. That's fine. It can give us some good luck. However, I still have to let them come over first. There are some things that I have to communicate with them personally. After all, this batch of goods is very important." Under the staff's introduction, Han Dong took the lead. Meritus held his arm and pretended to be his spouse. Eugene was at the back, showing a stumbling state. His body was shrouded in a ragged cloak. Cough, cough, cough. There were constant coughs coming from the cloak. Among the 3, only Meritus didn't hide her appearance. She also deliberately revealed the aura of a toad. "He's toad demon. This messenger seems to have a lot of status." The deep sea was originally inseparable from the toad demon tribe. However, due to the existence of the Bufo, the toad demons were completely independent and had their own country. Such a high-level female toad demon was not easy to get. To have such a spouse accompanying him further confirmed Han Dong's identity as the deep-sea messenger. The muscular man's tone also became unusually gentle. "I didn't expect that the emissary from the deep sea would also go to Antarctica at this time. What a coincidence. Originally, we needed to transport a large number of important materials, so we contracted this ship in advance. Since you want to accompany us, we are also willing to make some space. However, there are some things that I have to confirm with you in advance. Han Dong just nodded and didn't say anything. Your spouse is a toad demon. There's no problem with that. May I ask who the last one is? Under the chrome mask, there was a low and hoarse voice that sounded like there was tobacco in his throat. It's my best friend. This trip to the South Pole is also because of his injury. His core was disturbed by the energy, and his soul was injured. The treatment I have now is not enough to heal him. We could try to take him to the South Pole to try our luck. Let's see if we can find any ointment or medical equipment left behind from ancient times. Seriously injured? How did you get here? He had to make this clear. The injuries here could be a plague. If it was a plague that could infect the hybrid demons, he definitely couldn't bring it onto the boat. It's a wound from the Destiny realm. It's not an infectious disease. Speaking of which, Eugenius took the initiative to take off his hood. Reflected in the eyes of the brawny man was a middle-aged man with little hair left and a withered body. He wore a leather jacket, loose trousers, and long leather shoes that were completely wet by seawater. He wore a conch-shaped respirator on his face, and the exposed parts of his body were covered with marine creatures. Every time he coughed, there would be viscous body fluid dripping from the respirator. He was very weak, but there were no symptoms of the plague. It seems that the emissary's friend is seriously injured. Come on board with me. Please remember, don't touch these goods out of curiosity. The price is secondary. The main thing is to consider the safety of the emissary. Okay, they passed the review of the brawny man. Everyone successfully boarded the Coral. Eugenius also put on his cloak again. A faint green light also appeared in the hood, and the corners of his mouth were slightly raised. The appearance that the brawny man saw just now was just Eugenius' disguised image. In principle, it was completely different from Han Dong's disguise. Eugenius used seamless eyeballs to grow in every corner of his body. Even his hair grew in small eyeballs of the same size. Through the ocular skills, visual effects, light reflection, and other effects provided by each eyeball, he perfectly imitated his vision and aura. After all, he was a body of origin. Han Dong was not surprised that he had such means. Let's get on board. The ships docked at this port town, and sailing to the South Pole were all sailboats. Han Dong was about to board a relatively large four-masted sailboat with a hull made of coral. It was one of the 3 best sailboats in Mammoth Town. The coral hull had a strong hydrophilic and regenerative properties. It could sail in the absence of wind and could self-repair in a short time if it encountered a serious impact. At the same time, it could also form temporary ocean foam for the crew to dive for a period of time. Han Dong, who boarded the ship, found that the front and rear decks and cabins were full of black wooden boxes. The surface was engraved with seals, as if some kind of living creature was sealed inside. When Han Dong was taken to the crew lounge, he happened to bump into the members of the expedition team. Like the brawny man, this group of people were wrapped in thick army green, cotton-padded jackets and wore mechanical diving helmets that corresponded to the size of their heads. The expedition team had a total of 7 people. The other party gladly accepted Han Dong, the deep-sea messenger, and even seemed to be more enthusiastic. After all, the sea route was a long distance. With a deep-sea messenger accompanying them, they could also avoid the problem of shipwreck. Immediately, under the leadership of the brawny man, Han Dong and the other 2 were taken to the crew lounge and assigned to 2 adjacent rooms. You can rest at ease. Leave the sailing to us. If there are any problems, come and find us outside at any time. When the brawny man left with heavy footsteps, the door was quickly locked and a large number of eyeballs grew in the room to isolate the inside and outside. Han Dong said in a low voice, "This expedition team has 5 people who have reached atavism, including the brawny man just now. The things in the boxes are also very dangerous. Moreover, from their speech and behavior, it seems that this is not their first trip to Antarctica. Eugene, you should know something, right? The so-called expedition team is just a superficial name. The individuals who set foot in Antarctica are all selfish. This group of people is just more selfish. Whether it is the mark on the wooden box or the logo on the surface of their helmets, it is enough to positively identify this team as Antarctic hunters who supply Miskatonic University. Following this group of old foxes can shorten our trip. Rest at ease. They're just guys who work for money. They're not dangerous. After that, Eugene took the key to the next room from Han Dong. It seemed that he planned to sleep until the ship landed. Chapter 1136. With Eugene's departure, the eyeball enchantment in the room also turned into a trailing shadow and quickly returned to Eugene's back. It replaced the yellow sand field released by Han Dong and sealed the room again. It was not until this time that Meritus was completely relaxed. She was different from Han Dong. In other words, 99% of the hybrid demons, even the lords with atavistic level, couldn't get along with the original body normally without any psychological burden like Han Dong. Especially for an extremely evil person like Eugenus, Meritus was in a state of anxiety the whole time. Nicholas, I always feel that Eugenus is hiding something from us. Although you have the identity of an emissary and have received the attention of the higher-ups because of the London game, it's better to be careful. The Shugus clan is hiding in the dark corners of the world and symbolizes an extremely evil existence. This guy may have thoughts about your body. He's hiding more than one thing from me. Once the safety line I set in my heart is exceeded, I will decisively terminate the operation. Let's see the situation in Antarctica first. Well, we have nothing to do now. Do you want to? Mary was about to make a request when she suddenly felt a fluctuation in space. Immediately after, a pink octopus leg hit her. Let Nico play with you. This is the first time I'm on a large sailboat to Antarctica. I want to go out and see the scenery. Okay, if you're tired of staying outside, come back. Nico and I will always be here. Mary made an expression as if she was certain that she had Han Dong in her grasp. Then, she sank into the tentacles. Although what happened on the bed behind him was more interesting, Han Dong's interest was on another matter. In the conversation with Eugenus just now, a special noun was mentioned, Miskatonic University. According to Eugenus, this group of Antarctic hunters risked their lives to go to Antarctica to collect certain materials or capture living creatures to supply the university. Hybrid Demon University? With doubts, Han Dong came to the front deck area. Looking at the wooden boxes piled up here, in addition to the seal on the surface, there was also a light white circle of the school insignia. Circle, Shield, Book, 1690. While Han Dong was examining these wooden crates, the Coral officially set sail. First, the hull was wrapped in a bubble to isolate the seawater and provide oxygen to the inside. After diving for 10 minutes, the ship quickly ascended. It was as if a giant coral had appeared on the surface of the calm sea. The Coral, loaded with goods, officially headed for the South Pole. The limitless sea and the fog that covered the sky merged into one. The island, where everyone was originally on, was already thousands of meters away. At this speed, it was estimated that they would be able to reach the South Pole in a few days. It seems that the 1 month Eugenus mentioned can be shortened quite a bit. Count, are you there? What? Count, who had been treated as a mount some time ago, felt uncomfortable. The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. Do you know what kind of place Miskatonic University is, Count? Isn't there a knowledgeable toad demon in your room? Why don't you ask her directly? This Count doesn't want to answer your question now. I'm just writing you. Don't be so stingy. I promise you that if I encounter danger in the South Pole, I will consider lending my body to you. Not to mention, after experiencing the feeling of riding a bloodhound, Han Dong now had the idea of training Count as an exclusive mount. The Hound of Yandelis or Mr. Black and White's Crow carriage were no longer considered. Then you must give me your body. There are many problems in this trip to the South Pole. Okay, I will reluctantly tell you. Miskatonic University is indeed as you guessed. It is a special university based on the way you humans confer knowledge to future generations. It is also the only hybrid demon university. Only newborn hybrid demons who meet the standards can get the opportunity to study. The group of protoplasmic demons you encountered should have stayed there for a while. Speaking of this, Han Dong originally wanted to attack Count and ask Count why he didn't study there, but after thinking about it, he decided not to. By the way, where is this university? Why haven't I heard of it before? I don't know. Except for a few core members of the university, basically no one knows where this university is. Even the students who have stayed there don't know its true location. Rumor has it that the hybrid demons who are selected to enter Miskatonic University will receive an exclusive school emblem. With the resonance of the school emblem and the spatial device, they could be directly teleported to the campus. Huh? So secretive? Yes, there are secrets in this university. Another rumor is that behind this university corresponds to the key to the door, which is the source of the void energy in your body. At the same time, there are double-digit old kings who have more or less connections with this university. This information comes from Count's inquiries from various forces. It is quite precious. Interesting. If I can confirm that there is no problem with Eugenus, I can ask him directly. Han Dong secretly remembered the name of this university. Maybe he could go there in the future if he had the chance. Right? Kid, your eye is the magic eye on your forehead. The corresponding Book of the Dead, I copy, must have come from there. Another rumor is that among the many books in Miskatonic University, there's a copy of the highest level Book of the Dead. Copy. Okay, I will find a chance to take a look in the future. Han Dong stood at the end of the deck and enjoyed a moment of peace. He gradually adapted to life on the ship. As Eugenus said, although this group of explorers felt that something was not right, they had no malice toward them and would even send delicious meals on time. Time passed day by day. With the hydrophilicity of the coral, its speed was 3 times that of an ordinary large sailboat. At noon on the 9th day, the coral officially sailed into the Antarctic Sea and passed through the colorful film that covered the entire Antarctic Sea without any hindrance. Suddenly, the eternal night was lifted. The bright sun immediately shone on the entire sailboat. Han Dong, who had stayed in the eternal night for a long time, found it difficult to adapt. He even didn't want to stay under the sun. However, as a human, he still had the upper hand in the short term. He stepped on the deck and enjoyed the long-lost sunshine. Standing straight at the end of the deck, he opened all 3 eyes and looked into the distance at the same time. While the majestic scene of the Antarctic glaciers came into view, there was also a scene that should not exist in Han Dong's impression of Antarctica. It was a black mountain that was very far from the shore, probably located in the central area of Antarctica. Its height was more than 3 times the height of the highest iceberg around. This black mountain, perhaps because of a special magnetic field or the strange luster emitted by its material, actually reflected the same reflection in the blue sky. From a distance, it looked like 2 black mountains were connected at the top, connecting heaven and earth into one. Chapter 1137. Just as Han Dong's ship passed through the thin film and officially entered the Antarctic Circle, he immediately felt that the messenger mark engraved on the back of his hand was weakened. The connection with the deep sea or the yellow robe became very weak. It must be known that this was just entering the thin film and had not completely landed on the Antarctic land. Presumably, the closer we are to the strange black mountain, the weaker the connection with the outside world will be, or even close to zero. It is indeed very dangerous. Moreover, the final destination of this trip to the Antarctic is the ruins of the ancient. It is very likely to be set up in the depths of the Black Mountain. At that time, there will be no connection with the outside world. I'm going to set up some backup measures, just in case. Thinking of this, Han Dong returned to the room with the fastest speed. 8 pink octopus legs were casually hanging on the bed. The 2 girls were sleeping and did not realize that the ship had entered the Antarctic region. Nicole, I need to ask you to do something for me. After Han Dong briefly explained the matter, Nicole asked with a worried face, "What if it's too late? As long as you do as I say, you will be able to make it in time no matter what." "Go." I will take Toga with me for the rest of the journey. Okay, master, be careful. In the blink of an eye, a pink body had appeared in the sea dozens of meters below the sailboat. It swayed its 8 tentacles and swam towards the depths of the sea. Nicole left. Meritus showed a very lazy appearance and slowly climbed up from the bed. She grabbed the bath towel on the bedside table and slowly wiped the water stains on her body. She sat on the edge of the bed, facing Han Dong, who was standing by the window. She raised her fleshy long legs high and slowly put on the velvet stockings that Han Dong bought for her in London. Meritus, who only wore stockings and a shirt, took the initiative to lean towards the window where Han Dong was standing and look in the direction of the Antarctic. We have entered the Antarctic? No wonder there was a feeling of spatial disturbance just now. My spatial ability is severely limited here. At most, I can only carry out a short-distance migration of no more than 10 meters. Only Han Dong, you have mastered the void technique and are barely unrestricted. Han Dong had no reaction to Meritus, who was next to him. Yes, this place can even isolate the nameless fog that pervades the Earth. It can almost be said that this colorful film separates the Antarctic from the world. However, since the old kings allowed this place to exist, there must be a reason for its existence. Meritus also asked worriedly, "What's the matter?" Speaking of which, can Nicole really get enough reinforcements in a time of crisis? If the other party is truly a remnant ancient, or a group of noble Shugas, ordinary deep-sea mantis demons won't be able to contend against them. You've slept with Nicole for so many days. You should know what she's capable of, right? Even if she's just a dependent, the blood of the royal family flows in her body. Besides, I have other methods. We're almost there. Hurry up and change your clothes. After a while, Mary pretended to be Han Dong's spouse and walked out of the room together. Instead of going to the deck, he went to the door next door. He knocked on Eugenis' door. During these days at sea, Han Dong hadn't seen Eugenis even once. The two girls, who stayed in the room most of the time, didn't hear any movement in the room next door. They didn't even hear the sound of the door opening once. Knock, 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 knock. After knocking on the door 5 times in a row, they finally heard the sound of the door lock. The moment the door was pushed open, Han Dong and Meritus retched at the same time and almost vomited their breakfast. They instinctively used all means to block their sense of smell. However, this wasn't just a problem with their sense of smell. During the time the door was open, Han Dong and Mary's bodies were infected with some plague. Green, stinky flesh and eyeballs of different sizes began to slowly grow on their bodies. Han Dong, who was once an apprentice knight of the mystic system, Pestilence, immediately activated his domain and removed the plague that infected the two of them. He continued to carefully open the door. The entire crew room had turned into Shugas' lair. It was dirty, smelly, and nauseating. The messy, dark green flesh had occupied the room. Strange and twisted tentacles grew randomly on the wall. A large number of oral structures also grew on the surface of the floor. Every step needed to be taken with great care. Eugenis lay limp on the bed in a lying posture, and his back was combined with the rotten flesh that covered the room. Moreover, the corresponding excretory organs of Eugenis' lower body directly discharged the filth into the sea through the bed, the floor, the cabin, and the bottom of the ship. That's right, a full 9 days at sea. Eugenis not only didn't leave the room, but he didn't even leave the bed. In Eugenis' hand was a comic book bought from London, and a large number of comics and novels were placed at the head of the bed. Seeing such a scene, Han Dong could only give a 2-word evaluation. Otako? Have we arrived? Eugenis pushed aside his green hair that was full of reptiles with a lazy look. He didn't seem to care about this trip and had no intention of scheming against Han Dong. Although Han Dong wasn't affected by the pollution, the scene in front of him really made him uncomfortable. Well, we're now crossing the broken ice area. You clean up a little and meet us on the deck later. Just before Han Dong was in a hurry to close the door to lock the stench, Eugenis suddenly added, "Nicholas, since you've entered the polar circle, you have to be careful at all times. This is the alien demon forbidden area. You may encounter unexpected dangers. Okay, Han Dong quickly responded. Compared to the danger of the polar circle, the most important thing was to close the door quickly. If he looked at the scene in front of him, it would be difficult to eat today. Click. The moment the door was closed, the stench and plague that escaped also returned to the room. Eugenius did a good job in this regard. The moment the discomfort disappeared, Han Dong also thought of Eugenius' reminder, the alien demon forbidden area. At the same time, he released his perception domain. Unexpectedly, when the domain spread to the end of the current passage, he accidentally captured a strange aura, an aura that didn't belong to the alien demons. The domain feedback to Han Dong was extreme cold, nothingness, danger. Who? Han Dong suddenly turned his head. He just happened to catch a glimpse of a severely frostbitten foot that had just stepped over the end of the passage and left a trail of ice footprints on the ground. Void steps with a twist of the foot, starlight shone. When Han Dong instantly teleported to the corner, he could no longer see the other party's figure, and the aura that the domain captured also disappeared. That thing just now wasn't an alien demon? What could it be? When Meritus, who followed closely, reached out to touch the ice footprints on the ground, a cold air immediately rushed into her body. It forced Mary to expel a large amount of water before the cold air was expelled from her body in the form of ice thorns. Could it be that the rumors are true? What rumors? In ancient times, the South Pole was one of the most important alien demon strongholds on this planet. At the same time, it was also one of the main areas affected by the world catastrophe. It is rumored that there are also some otherworldlings from otherworld wandering around here. The South Pole, that is completely isolated and not even affected by the eternal night, the holy land of the alien demon explorers, the last ruins of the ancient ones, the remnants of the original world's catastrophe. It seems that things are more troublesome than I expected. Eugenius really did hide a lot from me. Chapter 1138. About 20 minutes passed. Eugenius, who had finished cleaning his body, about 300 cubic meters of seawater had turned into a life-forbidden zone, and 2,000 cubic meters of seawater had been contaminated, put on a multi-layered cotton-padded jacket, and met Han Dong on the deck. The Coral was crossing the floating ice area and would officially dock in about 3 hours. Han Dong also told Eugenius about the encounter in the passage. The latter's expression didn't change much, but he frowned slightly. I didn't expect that thing would come to greet us before we landed. Since you were the first to encounter it, Nicholas, it was probably attracted by you. Me? By the way, what is this thing? I clearly saw it with the naked eye just now, and my domain was completely locked on. It took me less than a second to catch up, but this thing disappeared, as if it had evaporated into thin air. I've only encountered such a situation when I was in contact with Grimm. Eugenius scratched his eyeballs with his fingers and whispered, "Possession monster, an individual that can rely on an outer shell to exist directly in the state of consciousness. You were able to see it just now because it deliberately let you see it through the projection of consciousness. Obviously, it has designs on you. There were many of these things that came to our world at the beginning. In the absence of information, a large number of hybrid demons were unknowingly possessed, resulting in a large number of internal secrets being leaked. This was one of the main reasons for the subsequent large-scale cataclysm. Today, a very small number of possession monsters still exist in Antarctica and are confined here. They can't escape the membrane that covers Antarctica purely in the state of consciousness. However, what you just encountered should be a relatively high-end possession monster. It's rare to see one that can affect reality. Han Dong didn't care how advanced this thing was. If it came to possess him, that thing would be courting death. Han Dong was more concerned about another matter. Eugenius, does Antarctica exist in a captive way? Eugenius didn't deny it. Yes, the cataclysm in ancient times set our world back thousands of years. Many old kings fell, and countless hybrid demons died in battle. Naturally, this matter can't be let go. Some of the invaders that caused the cataclysm were bred here for us to conduct in-depth research. However, the relationship here is more complicated. When we arrive at the ruins of the ancients, you'll naturally know. At this moment, a chill swept over the three people standing at the end of the deck. When Han Dong turned around, he saw a woman similar to a frozen corpse appear about 10 meters behind him. As Eugenius said, she only projected her consciousness image to Han Dong. Nobody else could see it. "Have they come?" asked Eugenius. Similar to a frozen corpse, female, human appearance. It will project a projection based on your subjective consciousness. It's normal for you to see a human appearance. With your consciousness, you should be able to resist it, right? After all, you and Grimm have defeated a mythical being from another world together. No problem. Han Dong wasn't afraid at all on the level of consciousness. He already had Tugu on standby in his body. As long as this thing dared to possess the body, a series of hellish acupuncture, massage, and lava baths would be waiting for it. Seeing that the frozen corpse was approaching, Han Dong made preparations. A magnet flew out from behind and smashed into the wooden crate next to the monster's body. Suddenly, a black sticky substance similar to a net overflowed from the wooden crate and instantly wrapped the monster that looked like a frozen corpse. The capture was successful. What good luck! I didn't expect to capture a monster that can affect reality as soon as we arrived at the floating ice area. A familiar voice came. The brawny man who had guided Han Dong and others onto the ship slowly walked over. He was holding the magnet that had just broken the wooden crate, or rather, his palm was the magnet. He took off his gloves, revealing a palm with a rock structure. "Lord Messenger, are you all right? That monster just now seemed to be very interested in you." The brawny man's words contained a certain sense of contempt. In the situation just now, Han Dong, the messenger of the deep sea, seemed to be frightened and stood at the bow of the ship without any movement. "It's all right. It's the first time I've encountered such a thing. I heard that the monster is a pure consciousness. Only the target it wants to possess can see it. How did you capture it?" Clang! Clang! The brawny man knocked on the helmet with his stone palm. The back of the helmet was clearly printed with the school emblem of Miskatonic University. It was obviously made by this school. This thing can achieve the effect of consciousness imaging. By the way, you don't even have the most basic consciousness imaging device. And you actually came to Antarctica? Are you really not afraid of death? After all, this is the hybrid demon forbidden area. I advise you to go back. Anyway, the membrane is not too far away. I don't mind wasting some time to send you out of the circle. It's all right. We still have some preparations. Okay. The brawny man didn't insist on anything. In case Han Dong died in Antarctica, he could also collect the corpse. 3 hours passed. The coral successfully docked. The brawny man threw a coral anchor that weighed several tons and steadily drilled into the thick ice. They officially set foot on the Antarctic continent. "Hey, Lord Messenger, do you want to consider hiring us?" According to what you said, if you want to find the ancient ointment or the medical equipment left behind by the ancients, you must go to the Meat Mountain. I'm afraid you will encounter unimaginable dangers along the way. Han Dong wanted to refuse. Unexpectedly, Eugene suddenly said, "With this group of experienced Antarctic hunters, it can save a lot of trouble." "What's the price?" "It depends on what price the Lord Messenger can give. All kinds of props and materials are fine. According to the price you give, we will determine the escort distance. If the price is satisfactory, we are willing to accompany you all the way and even help you find medical equipment." Han Dong didn't have anything in his hands, and he couldn't give out all kinds of destiny equipment. So he pointed to the coral of the deep sea behind them. "Is this ship okay? As long as I can return safely, I will directly apply to the port." After that, Han Dong directly wrote a letter of commitment, signed his name, and imprinted a deep-sea mark on the back of his hand. "Deal. We are willing to escort you all the way." The Lord is really generous. It seems that the identity of your friend is also very special, worthy of such a high price. However, there are some things that have to be made clear in advance. We can control the situation outside the meat mountain, but it's hard to say inside the meat mountain. Once you enter the meat mountain area, you need to listen to our orders. We will do our best to help you find medical remnants. Okay, if you don't mind, help us move these goods. You just saw that the things in these wooden crates have a very good binding effect on the possessed monsters. When we set off later, you will follow me and walk in the middle of the team to make sure nothing goes wrong. Thank you. As long as the money is in place, everything is negotiable. Chapter 1139. 3 biological wasteland-style transport vehicles were speeding on the polar ice surface. Each transport vehicle was loaded with wooden crates, no more and no less. The transport vehicles were made by the expedition members on the spot. The transport vehicles were mainly composed of a biological core and a magnetic shell. The biological part, a brain cockpit with a consciousness detector through the nerve synapses in the cockpit. It could control any meat area of the transport vehicle to produce changes, and a row of muscle tentacles in series. This part was made by a fat female engineer in the team alone. The magnetic part, the shell of the transport vehicle, spiked tires, gave protection and allowed it to move steadily on the glacier. The person who provided the magnetic materials was naturally the muscular man who received Han Dong and the others. Because Han Dong officially reached a cooperation with their expedition team. This person also said his real name, Gunter Shinyan. The 3 transport vehicles moved in a straight line. The vehicle driven by Gunter carried Han Dong and the others in the safest middle position. Because the biological vision system in the cockpit also had the function of consciousness detection, Gunter Shinyan also took off his metal diving helmet and revealed his appearance for the first time. A head made of regular magnets was revealed, and the rocky tentacles were arranged in strips on the surface. The glass-like eye was embedded in the middle of the rock layer, and the cave-like mouth made Han Dong inexplicably think of Grimm. The level was mature. Of course, Han Dong and the others had already concealed and suppressed their own breath when they met. They were also mature. Similarly, Han Dong also took off his crow coat and appeared in human form in front of Gunter. Sure enough, your body is mixed with human genes. No wonder a mature body like you with average strength can become a deep-sea messenger. It turns out that you are hybridependents. Was it because of the exploration of the destiny space that you were given the identity of a messenger? Gunter's words obviously contained a sense of contempt. Perhaps it was not his intention. Yes. Han Dong nodded. Messenger, we still have to travel for at least 2 days to reach the meat mountain. If you are bored, you can look at the scenery outside. There are not many who go deep into the South Pole like us. Gunter used his free right hand to hook a curved muscle on the control panel. Snap! A fleshy tube, similar to a periscope, descended in front of Han Dong. The suction cup-shaped opening could be attached to the eyeball accurately, allowing Han Dong to input visual images transmitted from the outside world. It was no longer the vast expanse of white Antarctic ice. The first thing that caught his eye was the frozen corpses standing on the ice. In Han Dong's eyes, these possessed monsters were all in human form. They even showed some subconscious characters, including the students that Han Dong had taught in school and even passers-by that he had met. This time, Han Dong observed even more carefully. He actually read a sense of despair on the faces of these frozen corpses. While traveling towards the Black Mountain of Flesh, the expedition team would occasionally stop to capture some good quality possessed monsters. Other than that, there were also many black lumps on the ground of the glacier. The tallest one could be described as a small hill. These were all derivatives of the Mountain of Flesh at the edge of the South Pole. Although the main body of the Mountain of Flesh appeared in the center. In fact, its entire body covered the entire South Pole. What's a Mountain of Flesh? Han Dong wanted to hear the answer from the expedition team. It's a large country created by the ancients in the South Pole. It once corresponded to the highest level of land deeds. Before the cataclysm hit, it could be said to be one of the most powerful countries on Earth. Even if the land deeds were destroyed, This mountain of flesh still functions normally and is even slowly growing. It's because of the existence of the mountain of flesh that the stability of the South Pole can be ensured. Cough, cough, cough. When Gunnar D. Cliff said this, he suddenly coughed. Coughing might be a normal phenomenon for humans, but it was an unnatural situation for the hybrid demons. It was very likely that there was a problem with the body. Strange, Gunter immediately checked his body and didn't find any problems. However, Han Dong, who was sitting next to him, noticed that some green gas overflowed from the cough just now. Considering Eugenus' request to travel with this group, Han Dong associated it with an uneasy situation. Mr. Gunter, the possessed monsters that exist here shouldn't be a real threat, right? For you guys, whether it's the observation equipment or the capture device, it's already very perfect. It's easy to deal with these things. Is the main reason why this place is called a forbidden area because of the mountain of flesh? Yes. Whether it's us or other explorers, the possessed monsters are experimental materials. As long as we pay attention, there won't be too much danger. The real danger is the mountain of flesh, the lost kingdom of the ancients. Even though we often move around the South Pole, we have never really entered the core of the mountain of flesh. We only collect things that can be exchanged for money in the flesh layer. Let me tell you one more thing. The members of our team have not always been fixed. At first, our team had 20 people. The only ones who have survived until now are me, Lespencer, and Ajin. The rest of the members joined later. Since it's your first time here, you must follow me when we enter the mountain. Don't have any thoughts of acting on your own. Understood. Just like this, the transport vehicle traveled on the ice field for 3 days. The closer they got to the center of the polar circle, the less the connection between the mountain of flesh and the outside world. Some small ridged mountains began to appear on the ice field, or black flesh towers that stood alone on the ice field. In addition, there was also an extremely strange scene. In the ice field close to the main body of the mountain of flesh, they saw some possessed explorers. Most of them were lying on the surface of the mountain of flesh, constantly eating the meat. This behavior lasted for several years, or even decades. It led to a result: fat. The possessed hybrid demons didn't move at all because of the continuous eating. As a result, their feet and external tentacles were severely degraded. Their stomach sacs and stomachs were constantly enlarged and became extremely fat in order to accommodate the black meat that they constantly ingested. The stomach of the possessed demon reached an average of 10 times the size of a normal individual. Some of the hybrid demons' stomachs were comparable to a standalone villa. They even combined with the mountain of flesh and turned into a unique landscape on the mountain of flesh. According to Gunnar's explanation, this was the only way to escape from the South Pole because of the possessed monsters. They believed that the mountain of flesh was the main core that maintained the thin film barrier. The only thing they could do was to eat the mountain of flesh by eating. Unfortunately, the growth rate of the mountain of flesh was far faster than the eating speed. When he heard such an explanation, a sense of despair spontaneously arose. Han Dong couldn't help but pity this group of frozen corpses. We're here, with Gunter's reminder. The magnificent mountain of flesh had appeared in front of them. Compared with the multiplied hills, ridges, or protrusions, there was a big difference. The main body of the mountain of flesh existed as early as prehistoric times, and it had been built and polished by the ancient people. The appearance didn't have any sense of meat, but a texture between metal and rock, like an indestructible giant castle. There were also weirdly shaped geological structures on the foothills, such as the low walls of ancient castles, the towering structures of sentry towers, and some circular platforms with strange magic arrays drawn on them. The location of the expedition was at the foot of the mountain of flesh. In front of them corresponded to a cave with a broken stone door. Chapter 1140. Because Han Dong, the big boss, directly used the coral as a condition for the transaction. The expedition team also decided to help the boss find the medical equipment he wanted first, and then carry out their own hunting operation. After all, the value of the coral itself was actually higher than the corresponding reward for their own mission. They had to ensure that the boss returned safely before they could exchange for the coral in the deep sea. 3 transport vehicles were parked in a hidden area on the side of the cave. The 7 expedition team members and Han Dong were already standing in front of the cave with a broken stone door. Cough, cough, cough. A burst of coughing sounded in the team. Almost all the expedition team members had such symptoms, but the frequency was very low. Under the examination of the team's doctor, there was no problem with everyone's body, although some people suspected that it was the injured Eugene. But from the moment they boarded the ship to the moment they got off the transport vehicle, the only team member who had contact with Eugene was Gunner Deepcliff. The doctor in the expedition team thought that it might be the changes in the magnetic field of the mountain of flesh that stimulated everyone's brain nerves and caused the cough. It might also be related to their recent frequent trips to the South Pole. The cumbersome equipment on the expedition team was all removed, including helmets that could catch possessed monsters and thick coats that were used to keep out the cold and resist possession. According to them, the main body of the mountain of flesh could effectively isolate possessed monsters. At most, only possessed mantis demons wandered inside. The next activities in the mountain required the most agility. Many times, reaction and escape were needed to ensure survival. This lost kingdom hid unimaginable dangers. The ancients were the highest level of scientific research in ancient times. In order to ensure the confidentiality of the research results, they set up all kinds of unexpected traps inside the mountain of flesh. Although most of the traps have failed due to the invasion of the cataclysm and the decline of the ancients, there are still some traps that rely on the mountain of flesh that can operate normally. However, the most dangerous thing is not the traps. It is the creations left behind by the ancients. The designers of the Black Mountain of Flesh were this group of ancients, but the workers responsible for the construction were not them. Their bodies were not strong, and it was difficult for them to even lift large stones. All the work related to physical strength was left to the creations created by the ancients. Even now, there are still quite a number of ancient mantis demons created by the ancient ones wandering around the mountain of flesh. The most dangerous one is the evil losers, the Shugas clan. At this point, Han Dong immediately held back and almost turned his head to look at Eugenius beside him. Gunter Sandcrag continued speaking. I have to make one thing clear. Once we meet Shugas, we only have one goal: escape. The Shugas were the strongest individuals created by the ancients, and some of them could even break free from the ancient shackles on the level of consciousness. Since they were the embodiment of evil, there was no room for negotiation. However, because of the strength of Shugas himself, the inheritance of a portion of the ancient knowledge system, and a sense of slavery rooted in the depths of his soul, these evil losers were also slowly accepted by the hybrid demon circle. Some of them successfully left the South Pole and moved around the world, serving different old kings. Generally speaking, we couldn't deal with Shugas. If we encounter other types of creations, we can consider killing them. I hope that the emissary can cooperate with us in suppressing them. We must suppress and eliminate the creations as quietly as possible. No problem. Han Dong's emotions were still somewhat complicated. After all, when Gunter mentioned Shugas, there was a clear flash of fear in his eyes. It was as if they had once had a terrifying encounter with Shugas. However, the most terrifying monster, which could even be considered a member of the Shugas clan, was among them. The moment he stepped into the cave, the cold wind howling in his ears abruptly stopped, and in exchange there was only the crisp sound of his feet stepping on the stone floor. A single step separated him from the rest of the world in an absolute sense, giving him the feeling that he had stepped into a different world. The white snowy scenery was instantly replaced by a black cave. Light source prohibited. Explorers who entered the mountain of flesh had to have night vision. Once they used light sources, not only would they activate a portion of the traps, but they would also be sensed by some ancient mantis demons who were absolutely afraid of light due to the photon radiation. Even though thousands of years had passed, the stone slabs in the cave were in a brand new state. They were even glowing. The walls on both sides also looked very strange. In addition to the geometric protruding rocks, there were also various kinds of mantis demon skulls embedded in the walls. Han Dong used his little magic eye to see through the rocks and found that the rocks were slightly moving. To be more precise, the molecules that made up the rocks were being mobilized by some kind of seal and were operating in an orderly manner. Is this mountain of meat being automatically managed internally? You have good eyesight. The adaptive transformation that the mountain of flesh has is one of the techniques of the ancient ones. The mountain of flesh will regularly clean up the debris in the tunnel and devour all the living creatures that died here. Then, through a complicated processing process, it will display the characteristics of the goods in the tunnel to serve as a warning. It is this kind of adaptive technology that allows the mountain of flesh to exist forever. Interesting, under the guidance of the experienced explorers, they did not trigger any traps along the way. They smoothly went nearly a kilometer deep. It was even smoother than when they came here before. A fork in the road appeared in front of them. The leader of the mantis demon was called Jean. He was a perception mantis demon whose brain floated above his skull. His head was full of tentacles, and he was also the guide of the team. When encountering a fork in the road, choose the right one. We have made sure that we are moving in the outer circle. Cough, cough. Jean couldn't help coughing for a moment, although his voice was suppressed to the lowest level. Han Dong's magic, I found that a wisp of nano-sized green particles was coughed out at the same time and quickly floated to the depths of the right tunnel. In less than 10 seconds. As a perception mantis demon, Jin's pupils contracted extremely, and the tentacles on the surface of his brain were completely tense. Shugus. Shugus is coming from the right tunnel. Let's withdraw from a mountain of flesh first. Just as everyone was about to withdraw from the original path, Jean felt something again. There was the same Shugus feeling in the original path. This kind of feeling scared Jean so much that a lot of brain secretion flowed out. How was it possible? How can we encounter two Shugus at once? Shouldn't these guys be moving in the inner circle? The right tunnel that was supposed to go forward was blocked, and the way back was also blocked. Only the left tunnel that led to the depths of the mountain of flesh was left. The explorers who had encountered Shugus before were absolutely unwilling to confront this kind of monster head-on. Not to mention that there were two of them now. They had no choice but to run toward the left tunnel with all their might. However, Shugus, who was chasing behind them, had no intention of giving up at all. Their huge bodies filled the tunnel. The mountain of flesh was their home, and they moved the fastest here. Han Dong, who was carrying the injured Eugene on his back and escaping with the explorers, glanced behind him curiously. The spacious tunnel was filled with a kind of dark green, gelatinous monster. The eyeballs on its body were constantly dissolving and reconstructing themselves. The ends of its tentacles also grew sharp mouths with green saliva flowing out. Shugus seemed to be chasing its prey, but also seemed to be frantically searching for their idol. Chapter 1141. Why did we encounter two Shugas in the outer circle? This is their home. If we continue to escape like this, if we can't find the exit, we will die. Jean, who was responsible for sensing and planning the route, couldn't accept the reality in front of him. Because of Shuga's relentless pursuit, they could only escape into the depths of the meat mountain. The depth they had reached had long exceeded the exploration range of the expedition team. During the escape, Jean, who was the leader, also felt a sense of disharmony. Every time a fork appeared, it was possible that the fork leading to the outside of the meat mountain was either blocked, or there was another Shugas hiding in it. The only choice left for everyone was to escape into the depths of the meat mountain. After passing through 11 forks, the original cave passage turned into a staircase leading to the bottom, and the hissing sound of Shugas was getting closer. They were forced to go down the staircase that led to an unknown place for nearly a kilometer. When they left the staircase, they were greeted by a wider space. To be precise, It was a spherical space similar to the core of a planet. This is the ruins of the city in the Meat Mountain. With a geometric style as the theme, all kinds of buildings were made of metal and ore. They were regularly distributed in any area of the spherical space, and even attached to the walls on both sides or hung upside down on the top floor. The surface of each building was inlaid with dim crystals. Han Dong felt the residual energy in these crystals. It seemed that in ancient times, these crystals embedded in the surface of the building could meet all the energy supply inside the building and even give a permanent anti-gravity effect. Things changed with the passage of time. Now, there were only broken ruins and a few creations hidden in the ruins. While the expedition team was panicking, Han Dong was carefully observing the town here. Judging from the characteristics of the buildings, this should be a residential area, and the stone bridge in front of us should lead to a deeper place, a more important place. The exit of the staircase corresponded to a stone bridge in the center of the spherical space. When a strange aura of living creatures appeared here, some creations in the ruins immediately sensed it and showed a ferocious face. They could only continue to run along the stone bridge. At the end of the stone bridge, a black door that was more than 10 meters wide blocked their way. Relying on the ability of the mature hybrid demon, compared to the initial encounter with Count, it was still possible to break the stone gate of more than 10 meters. However, through tentacle isomerization, Gunter Deepcliff formed a magnetic fist 5 times the size on his right arm. When he punched the stone door in front of him, boom, an energy ripple spread out on the surface of the stone door. Rebound, Gunter was sent flying more than 10 meters away, almost falling off the stone bridge. Seals. Thousands of years have passed, and any seals that aren't managed will lose their effectiveness. Moreover, this stone door was clearly made by the Ancient Ones, and only they could maintain it. Could it be? There are still ancients living here. When Ajin thought about this, a strong sense of oppression swept through his body, accompanied by a pungent stench. A total of 4 Shugas had already caught up. The eyeballs that were constantly dissolving and reforming stared at the group of intruders. However, most of the eyeballs landed on Eugenus, as if waiting for instructions. Let's fight! This group of Antarctic hunters was doing very dangerous work, and they were prepared for death. However, whether it was the quality of the species or the difference in strength, it was all there. Moreover, among the Shugas that chased over, there was an atavistic body that was more than 100 meters in size. Just the stench emitted from its body could affect the mental state of the exploration team. Evil Vance Shugas. The ancients should be proud of their perfect creation, a mixture of many hybrid demons. Their gelatinous skin could effectively resist any type of magic, and the high toughness of their bodies could also reduce the impact of frontal force. For a moment, the scene here turned into a tragic grayish-white. The death of the exploration team became very simple. Even if they were mature and could use various abilities, such as tentacle isomerization and various types of rapid regeneration, these characteristics could only extend the time of death by a few seconds. When only 3 of the 7 team members were left, the attack of the Shugas suddenly stopped. Even the largest atavistic body immediately stopped moving. Gunter, who controlled magnets, Ajin, who exposed his brain, and a woman with an elongated spine that looked like a centipede barely survived. What happened? Just as the 3 of them were puzzled, an evil voice came from behind them. Congratulations, you've been selected. When Gunter turned his head, he found that the deep-sea messenger that they had escorted to the Meat Mountain to look for medical equipment had not been attacked by the Shugas at all. And the person who spoke was the so-called heavily injured person. At this moment, Eugenus took off his hood and exposed his green-haired humanoid form that resembled a tramp in front of everyone. At the same time, a few Shugas that were not far away immediately put their tentacles together in front of them, showing a strange kneeling posture. At the same time, blasphemous sounds came from their bodies to express their excitement at seeing their idols. At the same time, Gunter and the other 2 began to cough violently. Cough, cough, cough. Small eyeballs were coughed out of their mouths. Who are you? Fifth origin, Eugenus Trevolo, welcome to the Meat Mountain. The tough souls that exist in your bodies will be offered as an opening offering to the Creator here. Eugenus. Cough, cough, cough. When they got the answer, they coughed violently and uncontrollably. Their bodies disintegrated amidst the coughing, turning into eyeballs on the ground. Their souls were enveloped by a green energy and sucked into the stone door in front of them. Rumble. The stone door that led to the final ruins opened, and the remnant ancients who lived inside recorded the pinnacle technology of ancient times. Han Dong only watched the entire process silently. When the stone door opened, he asked in a low voice, "Why? Why are you doing this?" These explorers have also provided us with a lot of convenience. If we need an offering, we can find it elsewhere, right? Eugenus' eyes shone with a green light as he smiled and answered Han Dong's question. "Why? Didn't you realize that we didn't have to do anything along the way? We only needed to rest in the cabin, sit on the transport vehicle, and enjoy the scenery. Finally, we took a few steps in the cave to reach our destination. We could even enjoy the beautiful scenery of the dying struggle. What a delightful journey. At the same time, by coming here in such a manner, we can even be considered to have passed the South Pole test set by the ancients, coming to the deepest part in physical form and offering 3 offerings. I don't have to waste my breath to explain the relevant problems to you along the way. These people have done it for me. Isn't that good? These are all mature hybrid demons that can be considered as the world's combat power. Isn't this method of handling them a little inappropriate? It's just their fate. When they met us, they were destined to die. Furthermore, they can become a small stepping stone for you and me. The value of their lives has far exceeded the past. They should feel lucky and even thank me for granting them this way of death. Don't use your human values to judge all of this. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. Chapter 1142. Evil. The 3 original bodies that Han Dong had come into contact with so far all had this characteristic, or it could be said that this was the nature of the mantis demons. However, the evilness coming from Sally the black goat was the least. Sally had suppressed her nature very well, so much so that even Han Dong wanted to make friends with her. The evil of the mad demon green was manifested through madness, a kind of disorderly evil formed completely based on his own preferences. But the evil of Eugenus was a kind of inner and outer cultivation, and even existed as its main characteristic. Its nature was absolute evil, and the evil was constantly magnified in the process of growth. So much so that every inch of his skin and flesh was a symbol of evil. In the beginning, Han Dong admired the wisdom that Eugenus displayed in the competition. Coupled with the ancient library in Eugenus' brain, Han Dong was even more interested. He even gave up the opportunity to deepen his relationship with Miss Sally. Back then in London, Han Dong had even considered how to establish a friendly relationship with Eugenus. But now it seemed that there was no need. The pure evil that Eugenus revealed was unacceptable to Han Dong. It had completely crossed Han Dong's bottom line. At the same time, a sense of vigilance rose in Han Dong's heart. Coming all the way to this depth, the emissary's mark engraved on the back of Han Dong's hand was almost ineffective. A person like Eugenus could do anything. At this moment, Meritus said telepathically, "Nicholas, are you oversimplifying things? This is the original form of the Shugus, the ultimate evil creature created by the ancients in ancient times. They combine the advantages of the mantis demons, and their evil nature is several times, or even dozens of times, that of ordinary mantis demons. If you don't consider the servility that is rooted in the depths of their souls, their existence is definitely harmful to the development of the world." Yes, indeed, I'm oversimplifying things. Is this the Shugus? You've really opened my eyes. Yes. Once we enter this door, I'm afraid there's no turning back. Are we really going in? Yes. Since we're here, we naturally have to go in. Yes. Han Dong's eyes suddenly became resolute. Under Eugenus' invitation, he passed through the stone gate that led to the deepest part of the cave. The Shugas who had followed him here didn't seem to have the right to enter. They could only watch their idol leave with reverence in their eyes. He stepped through the stone door. Behind it was a science factory. It was a multi-level circular structure, and each level had a different type of laboratory, which was managed in a very standard manner. Groups of vegetable-like, ancient life forms that were slightly larger than human bodies were conducting a series of scientific experiments in various experimental areas. These individuals that looked like vegetables had oval barrel-shaped bodies, petal-shaped heads, and wings. They were the independent research group of the ancient era, the Ancients. Using the branching tentacles that grew out of their bodies, they were editing programs on the surface of the slate, storing and processing data, and controlling the situation in a laboratory. However, Han Dong felt a sense of dissonance in such a scientific factory. This group of ancients who were conducting experiments seemed to be in a passive position, as if they were being controlled by something. Eugene, is this the last relic you mentioned? This group of ancients has been reverse enslaved by your Shugas, right? No. They willingly changed the master-servant relationship. When the cataclysm of the world came to Antarctica, when the weapons they developed couldn't be stopped and the barrier couldn't resist, it was us who stood up and successfully defended this area. Without our existence, this group of weak ancients would have gone extinct long ago. Since they've been reverse enslaved by you, you should know all the knowledge they know, right? What's the point of me coming here? Eugenus revealed an evil smile. No, my brain library doesn't store all the knowledge. Since I've promised you, Nicholas, I'll do my best to help you find information about the prison world. Come with me. Under Eugenus' lead, they walked into the depths. Along the way, Han Dong carefully observed the laboratory here. He faintly spied on a large-scale project that the Shugas were conducting. The main research direction of these ancients was the Shugas' weapon. It wasn't a cold or hot weapon in the human concept, but a kind of shell. The Shugas often had a disordered, gelatinous, and large body with many tentacles. For example, the atavistic body that had chased Han Dong and the others before had reached a length of 100 meters. It couldn't even freely anthropomorphize. And this kind of body design came from the ancients in the past. The purpose was to let the Shugas be proficient in the construction of mountains of flesh. The gelatinous, disordered body could climb up all kinds of cliffs and drill through any crevices. Although it was also included in the combat system, its purity wasn't high enough. Now, it was necessary to modify the Shugas through this shell to make them purer and more powerful. Just as they gradually approached the depths of the factory, there was a strange smell in the air here. The moment she inhaled, Meritus couldn't hold it back. She lay on the ground and began to vomit. Han Dong relied entirely on his brain to support himself, but he also kept retching. His stomach was also stimulated and spasmed nonstop. The extreme stench and unparalleled filth. Just by smelling this smell, Han Dong could imagine how filthy the other party was in his mind. Unlike Eugenus green, what was currently floating in the air was an inky color. In the blink of an eye, it felt like the research factory had become an extremely dirty sewer. It was a manifestation of the realm-level domain. Mythical body, and it's one of the best among the mythical bodies. It's very likely that it surpasses the Evernight Priest in terms of mythical grade. Just as Han Dong determined the source of the aura, a greasy voice came from the front. Eugenus, this is a top-secret area. It doesn't seem appropriate to bring two guests directly, does it? Lord, this guest is the winner of the London game. This time, I brought him here for a special matter. I won't leak the secret. What? The winner of the London game. Shouldn't it be that kid Grimm? That's right. He and Grimm won the final victory together and received the attention of many old kings. And he himself has an inseparable connection with that walker. Many old kings. Grey Walker. Pitter-patter. Large amounts of saliva dripped down. When they heard this information, a slave mentality was born. The one who was communicating with Eugenus was a Shugas lord. The shell that was being developed in the experimental area had been applied to this lord to a certain extent. Tens of thousands of tentacles were all packed into a fat humanoid body. At the same time, it was combined with the core of the mountain of flesh in the deepest part of the experimental area, like a fat person stuck to a black pillar of flesh. This lord could be said to be infinitely close to the old kings, but due to the problem of slavery, he only wanted to exist as a servant of the old kings. It was difficult to break through on his own. Chapter 1143. Shugas was the ruler. Through a newly developed shell, he turned himself into a fat man and stuck to the surface of the heart of the meat mountain that was shaped like a column of flesh. In this way, he could fully control the meat mountain or the entire Antarctic Circle. This kind of adhesion management could be said to completely restrict freedom. Even sleeping had become a luxury, and it required a lot of energy to monitor the state of Antarctica. And the ruler himself, except for a certain amount of energy supply from the heart of the meat mountain, looked very bad. This kind of restraint also limited the development of this ruler, and even had a feeling of being imprisoned here. But Han Dong didn't see any discomfort from the other side. Instead, he saw a sense of pride in his eyes. He was absolutely proud of the supervision he was currently doing and was willing to contribute himself. Is it because of slavery? I'm afraid that some old king, or even many old kings, handed over the management of Antarctica to this ruler. The mentality of slavery gave him an absolute sense of satisfaction. As long as he could work for the old kings and get the praise of the old kings, his self-worth would be reflected. In this way, this group of evil and cruel Shugas did have a reason to be kept. Such obedient and powerful pets, the old kings would naturally like. However, since this group of guys could resist their original masters, they must have established independent thinking on the basis of slavery. In other words, they could recognize their own slavery, especially a different kind like eugenist. If I were eugenist, I would definitely try to get rid of the slavery in my body. So, the real purpose of this trip to Antarctica is really me. Through the ruler's performance, Han Dong realized how much slavery limited the Shugas family. On second thought, eugenist brought him here. It was impossible for him to generously provide information about the prison world. There must be some selfishness. So what was eugenist's selfishness? Did he want Han Dong to be the introducer and recommend him to the old Gray King, so that eugenist would have a master who was strong enough to serve him? Or did he want to use Han Dong's ability to get rid of the slavery in his body? Or, thinking of this, Han Dong hurriedly sent a voice transmission to Mary. Hurry up and come in my body. Things may develop towards the worst situation. Mary turned herself into a puddle of clear water and quickly flowed into Han Dong's body, embedded in the void laboratory with a battery. The Juggernaut stared at Han Dong, the winner of the London Games. This young man, who had connections with many of the old Wangdu, was so excited that he was drooling. When the surging emotions subsided, a series of extremely foul-smelling black tentacles suddenly drilled out from his fat belly button and instantly wrapped around Han Dong's body, pulling him into the air. I didn't expect that you would actually find such a perfect vessel. Even I can't see through this head. Eugenist, if you can completely occupy this person's body, you can use the gray matter in this head to eliminate the servitude that is rooted in your body. You can also use this body to become a king. Explain that our race will no longer have to serve outsiders and will build a perfect kingdom that belongs to us. The Juggernaut spoke his true thoughts in front of Han Dong. Or at this juncture, there was no need to hide it at all. This was the deepest part of the mountain of flesh. Han Dong had no possibility of escaping, and the possession would be completed in a short time with the help of the Ancients' technology under the Juggernaut suppression. Once the possession was successful, no one would know what was happening here. Eugenist would first borrow Han Dong's body to live for a while, completely make use of Han Dong's network of relationships. and he himself would also be free of the slavery shackles of Shugus and become a king with this body. Count gave a thumbs up. However, Han Dong, who was bound between the stinking tentacles, didn't have any nervous expression. He just stared at Eugenius below with an indifferent expression. Eugenius, what is the meaning of this? Didn't you say that you would tell me more about the prison world through the ancient's knowledge base? Eugenius raised the stinking green hair hanging in front of his face and responded with a smile. That's right. Once I occupy your body through ancient rituals and technology, I will retain your consciousness to a certain extent. Although you can't control your body, you can enjoy my brain library. At that time, you can load the ancient knowledge in the library at will. You can also steal more knowledge from the minds of these ancients, or read the ancient stone slabs left here to find the prison information you want. I will allow you to learn all knowledge. Of course, in return, your body will naturally belong to me. Ha ha, ah ha ha. For a moment, Han Dong, who was bound in the Juggernaut's tentacles, couldn't hold back. He held his forehead with one hand and began to laugh wildly. However, Eugenius, who heard this laughter, was so frightened that the tentacles all over his body stiffened. He reflexively blocked the hole on the surface of his body. Because the laughter contained a kind of crazy attribute, it made him think of Grimm immediately. Among the 10 primordial essences, the only individual Eugenius feared was Grimm. Why do you still have the crazy attribute? No, your crazy attribute is a bit different. It's not the pure madness of Grimm. What an unexpected gain. Maybe I can use your body to get in touch with the mad abyss and even become the subordinate of that mad king. In the end, it's still hard to change your slave nature. Han Dong cut off his crazy laughter and immediately added a sarcastic remark. Whoosh! A green light instantly pierced through Han Dong's chest. Eugenius no longer pretended, showing an extremely ferocious expression. His fingers, shining with plague light, pointed at Han Dong's penetrated chest. And the humanoid form that Eugenius had maintained for a long time had also undergone a certain change. The left half of his face appeared in a state of dissolved mucus, and eyes of different sizes appeared in the green liquid. Humans are indeed the most inferior creatures. When I have more of your body, I will seize all control of your consciousness and keep your consciousness in your body. Then, I will use your body to sneak into the human city. I will let you watch as your family and friends are killed by me one by one. Juggernaut, suppress this person's consciousness. Let's start the consciousness. For a moment, the mythical realm from the Dominator quickly approached. But Han Dong just happened to fight against a mythical existence in a London game not long ago, and also had a confrontation on the consciousness level. Pharaohs, well, the identity and the realm complemented each other. In an instant, a powerful consciousness domain was released by Han Dong. It was like an army of Anubis was tearing apart the evil defeat domain released by the Juggernaut. At the same time, strange iron nails grew out from Han Dong's body and pierced into the tentacles that bound his body. The extreme pain from the Hell Monastery was also transmitted through the iron nails, forcing the Dominator to release the tentacles that bound Han Dong because of the extreme pain. Mary, he mobilized the spatial energy in his body. Strands of star marks covered Han Dong's body, and with the void mark that was secretly left in front of the stone door. The void power that was not restricted by space carried Han Dong away from the research factory in an instant. At the same time, the whole mountain of flesh was boiling, and all the monsters hiding in the dark received the Dominator's consciousness message, which was Han Dong's wanted order. Chapter 1144. The void imprint that was set outside the stone door was secretly left by Han Dong when Eugenius was enjoying the death performance of the expedition team. Actually, although Han Dong considered that Eugenius might have some unfavorable plot against him, but Eugenius should have expressed it in a more tactful way in the follow-up process. He didn't expect that Eugenius would use such a direct method to lead Han Dong to meet the Dominator here. He even explained the possession plan in front of him. Fortunately, Eugenist didn't fight to the end in the London game. He didn't know that Han Dong's identity could allow his consciousness to reach the level of a mythical entity in an instant. Han Dong found an opening and escaped in an instant. Han Dong, who had escaped from the factory, had no intention of stopping. His calves were full of star veins, and he moved in the void at an extremely fast speed, escaping between the passages of the Flesh Mountain. At this time, Merida's voice was also heard. Nicholas didn't have good intentions from the beginning. You probably guessed it. Why did he have to go to this extent? If we had directly evacuated in front of the stone door, the probability of escaping successfully would have been much higher. Now that we are targeted by the Dominator, and you seem to have injured him, I'm afraid it will be difficult to escape. It can be said that the entire Flesh Mountain is your enemy. I have to go in. I have to see the specific situation in the ruins with my own eyes. After all, I came with a request. I didn't expect to get information about the brain from Eugenist so easily from the beginning. Moreover, I plan to get more things which can be used for the construction of a new manor. You should think of a way to escape first. From Merida's point of view, the situation this time was more dangerous than the London game. Dominator Shoggs was tied up with the Flesh Mountain. It could be said that the entire South Pole was under the control of the other party. The London game had just ended not long ago, and more than 10 days ago, she joined forces with Grimm to kill the Golden Saint, which provoked Dominator Shoggs. Putting the danger aside, the trip with Han Dong was really exciting. If Mary didn't meet Han Dong and continued to be her lord in Toad Palace, she might not have such an opportunity in her life. They still encountered a lot of problems during their escape. No matter how domineering the void was, it could not cross the mountain of flesh that had been activated by the Juggernaut. This kingdom built by the ancients was one of the most powerful cities on Earth in ancient times. When activated, every wall would be enchanted with a barrier. Furthermore, under the sovereign's control, all paths leading to the outside of the mountain of flesh were sealed, and the sealing method was left behind by the ancient ones, so there was no way to destroy it from the front. What should we do? Where do we run to? Meridas also became flustered, sensing the heavy aura emanating from the sealed stone door. It was as if it had become one with the mountain of flesh. The ancients had carved an extremely intricate energy transfer array on the inside of the stone door, which could share the impact with the mountain of flesh. If he wanted to destroy it, his power would have to be able to destroy the entire mountain of flesh. Of all the existences at the same level, perhaps only the seventh origin, Hope, was capable of such a feat. It's easy to just seal the exit. I just need to pretend that I'm running away. Let the sovereign think that we only want to escape and seal the way out of the mountain of flesh, but not the paths that lead to the inside of the mountain of flesh. Han Dong put his hand into his clothes and touched his abdomen, sensing something through the black vortex. Where are you going? Don't tell me you want to go back and fight with the sovereign until the deep-sea reinforcements arrive? It's impossible to beat him. Mary was a little confused about Han Dong's thoughts. Don't worry, when the sovereign gets serious, he can kill me in an instant. I don't want to go back. I want to go to the other depths of the mountain of flesh. Where? The Destiny's space. I just saw an ancient's factory that Shoggs controlled. This shell they developed is a kind of shell that leans towards a human form. You also saw that the sovereign's appearance is similar to a fat person. This group of people not only want to modify their parameters, but also want to use the characteristics of humans to enter the Destiny space and see some abilities and treasures that don't belong to this world. Their ambition is huge. Eugenist chose me as a vessel partly because I have human characteristics. My torso can feel the existence of the Gate of Destiny, which is also in a very deep area. However, it is not the research area just now. Miss Mary, you only need to seriously help me sense the void. What follows will be a relatively long escape process. Just as Han Dong pretended to escape and retreated because the passage was blocked. Squeak, squeak. A wandering Shoggs blocked Han Dong's path. The huge, gelatinous body filled the passage, and the constantly dissolving and regenerating eyeballs watched the fugitive in front of it. As long as they killed it, they would get the sovereign's gift. For a moment, more than 10 tentacles shot toward the target. Boom! The tentacles hit a hole in the ground, and, at the same time, an extremely sticky plague liquid was left behind. But the target disappeared without a trace. Thousands of eyes all lost their target. A ray of starlight shone. Han Dong was already in the center of this Shog's body. There was a huge contrast in size, but Han Dong's aura completely suppressed the Shogs in front of him. Russell, the mummy bandage on his left arm floated in the air, and black sand flowed out of the holes in his arm. Anubis' virtual image appeared behind Han Dong. Advanced spell, Death Judgment. Anubis' virtual arm reached into Shog's body, pulled out a ball of mucus that symbolized the heart, and placed it on the scale. The weight of the green mucus immediately pressed down on the feather. Judgment success. The death magic used on the target causes 200% damage, and there is a certain probability of summoning a mit to devour the target's death. Individuals with divinity weaker than a mit will die directly. For a moment, an irresistible power of death was released from Han Dong's palm on the surface of Shog's body. Shogs, who had extremely tenacious vitality and magic-resistant skin, withered and died at a speed visible to the naked eye at this moment. Within 3 seconds, it turned into black sand and died completely. As expected of the strongest creation of the Ancient Ones, the mature body can actually last for 3 seconds. If it was the previous count, I'm afraid he would have died directly. WDNMD. An indignant voice immediately came from inside his body. Han Dong didn't respond either. The attack just now was just Han Dong testing the strength of Shogs, and they would encounter more frequently in the future. Han Dong had to destroy these creations at the smallest cost. If his stamina was overused, he would be in trouble once he encountered Eugenus. In this way, Han Dong, who pretended to escape, fled all the way to the other depths of the mountain of flesh. Chapter 1145. The Ancient Research Ruins. The deepest part was where Hegemen Shogs was bound. 5 minutes had passed since Han Dong escaped. The Hegemen was using the heart of the mountain of flesh to monitor Han Dong's every move. Han Dong appeared to be fleeing in a panic. He even used a series of strange methods to try and destroy the ancient stone door. He even tried to use the small gaps created by the destruction to travel through the void. He almost succeeded a few times. Thus, Hegemen Shogs focused on sealing all the passages to the outside. The idea was simple. As long as all the exits were sealed, the target would naturally have to flee deeper. Once Han Dong was trapped in the depths of the mountain of flesh or trapped in a certain area, he would become a fish on the chopping block. Although Han Dong had escaped once, the Hegemen did not care as long as he did not leave the mountain of flesh. However, Eugenus' attitude was completely different. Although he was still trapped in the area of the mountain of flesh, seeing the vessel slip away, Eugenus felt a sense of unease. Layers of liquid from the eyeballs were spreading under his body. Large amounts of dark green tentacles grew out from behind him, forming a green skeleton in the air. It represented the image of a plague. You useless piece of trash. You can't even suppress a low-level fellow. Eugenus cursed at Hegemen Shogs in front of him. It must be known that Eugenus was below the Hegemen in terms of seniority and rank. However, the Hegemen did not seem to care about Eugenus' curses. He even took the initiative to explain his mistakes. It's my problem. I didn't think that the vessel, who only exudes the aura of a mature body, would be able to fight against me through the consciousness domain. I also didn't think that this fellow would have such a profound void technique. However, as long as he's within the range of the mountain of flesh, there won't be a problem. Eugenus gradually calmed down and calmed his irritable state of mind. No wonder Green was leaning towards this fellow. From the looks of it, the reason why the Golden Saint was killed was because of the realm of consciousness that this fella displayed. It seems to be a type of willpower that doesn't belong to us hybrid demons. It can actually fight against a mythical body. Although it will seem weak after a long battle, it's already very powerful. Is this the power he obtained from the Destiny realm? Thinking of this, Eugenius was somewhat excited. Judging from the situation in London, the human shell used by Eugene showed high stability. As long as he continued to study it, he should be able to enter the Destiny space smoothly. "Give me the spear," Eugenius said in a low voice. "Is there a need for this? There's no way he can escape now. Once he's trapped in the depths, we have thousands of ways to suppress him. You might hurt the container." Someone who can escape from you and me, someone who can get Green's approval, is useful. There must be no more mistakes, even if the integrity of the container is damaged. Squeak, squeak, the sovereign's fat body was peeled off layer by layer from its navel. A geometrical stone slab slid out from within. Lines that looked like metal threads were swimming on the surface of the stone slab. With the stone slab as the key, Eugene came to the back of the heart of the mountain of flesh and opened a staircase leading deeper through the stone slab. Below it was the highest palace of the ancients, the council hall. 9 seats made of pure crystal surrounded the hall, corresponding to the 9 former counselors. At the same time, in the middle of the council hall, there was a column made of the heart of the mountain of flesh. The top of the column corresponded to the black crystal seat. It corresponded to the leader of the ancients, the former supreme ruler of the mountain of flesh. Now, the body of this ruler was pierced through by a strange stone spear and fixed to the seat. Eugenius used the eyeball as a mount and floated up. When everything was ready, he reached out and pulled out the stone spear. For a moment, the tentacles on Eugenius' right arm immediately wrapped around the stone spear. It was like being sucked up. The stone spear seemed to be alive and kept absorbing Eugenius' energy. It almost sucked the right half of Eugenius' body dry. Waves of green energy from Eugenius were completely compatible with the stone spear. Ancient characters appeared on the surface of the long handle. The stones that made up the spear blade were not whole. They were stuck together through a green substance. The stone in the middle looked like a skull with green eyes. Huff, huff, huff. I didn't expect the pressure to be so great. I have to replenish some energy. Dragging half of Eugenius' dried body, he returned to the experimental area. He immediately caught a few of Eugenius' kin and started eating them on the spot. He used the method of eating his kin to replenish the energy that was sucked away by the stone spear. As he finished eating, his green hair floated in the air. Eugenius reached an unprecedented peak state. With the stone spear in hand, he even had the confidence to fight Grim head-on. "Where is he?" The Dominator immediately responded, "Gamma, 09 area. I will open a direct passage for you. It should be able to intercept the target." Has he been forced to this depth? He is escaping through the void teleportation. He is very fast. This also accelerates the time he is imprisoned in the depths. It is also a good thing. Although Eugenius smelled a hint of something wrong, he was more inclined to defeat Han Dong quickly. After all, the stone spear in his hand was eager to fight. "Dominator, remember to help me restrict this guy's movements during the battle. Void is still a troublesome attribute. I don't want to let him slip away again." Speaking of the void, Eugenius thought of another existence of the same level that he hated very much. Hanging the stone spear on his back, he quickly rushed to the area where Han Dong was through the secret passage. When he reached Gamma 09 area, what appeared in front of him was a more tragic scene. Several broken corpses of Eugenius were left in the passage, all killed by Han Dong. Have you figured out the technique to deal with Eugenius? Eugenius put his palm on the ground, and the scattered pieces of Eugenius were immediately absorbed into his body. At the same time, he obtained the image of Han Dong, killing them before they died. Not far, Dominator forcibly sealed the way. At the same time, 200 meters away, Han Dong was pretending to escape while approaching the area of the Gate of Destiny. But Han Dong gave up the direct route and chose a more roundabout ring layer. He knew very well that the Dominator was monitoring everything here at all times. It was necessary to hide his true purpose. At this moment, boom, the mountain trembled. In the current open area of the cave, there should not be a stone door that could block the way. But from between the walls, several thick tentacles about 5 meters in diameter drilled out and forcibly blocked the way. He smelled a dangerous breath and turned his head. Green-haired Eugenius was already behind him. You can really escape, Nicholas. From the moment you stepped into the mountain of flesh, you were destined to become my vessel. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.